Welcome, truth seekers and mystery lovers, to another episode of The Strange Road. I'm your host, Mikey. We've got a fantastic episode tonight. We've got two guys that live and breathe the strange, man. First, I want to introduce Tony Merkel, entrepreneur, filmmaker. He's the founder of Merkel Media and host of the Confessionals podcast. Also joining us is Joel Thomas, musician, entrepreneur. He's a monster hunter and also the host of Free the Rabbits podcast. Tony, Joel, what's up, guys? Welcome to The Strange Road.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah.
What's up, man?
It's been a long time.
I forgot to mention Joel, returning champ as well, everybody. Joel
Champ of
Thomas. Returning guest, a very, very popular episode with Joel. A lot of our clips and reels and TikToks went thermonuclear from that episode. So there you go. We're
especially the one about one of the J clones.
Yeah, that did. Oh, you had us in tears, man. Oh, we were cracking up. Anything to do with Mr. E and Jay is always, and Jay's such a good sport, man. He's such a good sport. He has half the internet coming after him most of the time about being a Smithsonian shill and whatever else.
Dude, they talk about J clones on the Confessionals app.
Yeah.
So his new app is a social media app, plus you get access to all of the members stuff too.
Cool,
so all the new members episodes and everything else. So it's a sharing app too, so people can communicate with each other. It works just like
it's like X.
Yeah.
It's like having an X app kind of thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, they talk about J clones on there all the time, and I get tagged in something. Anybody says something about a J clone, they tag me in it. Like, which one is this?
I need to hop in there and stir some stuff up.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
That's
fun.
cool. Well, you guys are doing a lot. One thing I think, for me, I'd like to hear the story. If you guys have been living under a rock, Tony, the Confessionals, you're like one of the OG paranormal podcasters out there. Much respect to everything you got going on with Merkel Media, and Joel is part of the Merkel Media family. And talk to us about how that happened, how you guys hooked up, and how you guys are kind of moving forward with everything that's happening now.
Well, it all starts with every good story starts with a man sitting on a toilet. So I guess the Confessionals, it's a podcast, and like you just mentioned, and you said OG, or whatever you said. I was just like, wow. I guess in this space, in a sense, yeah. I mean,
you are, dude.
I started 8 years ago, and 8 years ago, podcasting was not what it is today. But yeah, so I mean, I just started interviewing people, and it gained traction, and here we are. But with me and Joel, I literally was on the toilet, and so that's not a lie. And I think I got a DM from his friend Mark, or an email or something, and said, "Hey, my friend is a musician, and he does a lot of conspiratorial type music." And
Mark Ripper? Different Mark. Okay.
However,
shout out to Mark Ripper.
However, we're going to be at Mark Ripper's house doing some filming tomorrow.
Nice. Well, there you go. Tied it all together.
But and he's like, just check it out. And I've had people over the years say that, and usually it's not my kind of music. It's a lot of times it's like it sounds like it's an old bluegrass song made in your garage kind of thing. Just not my style.
Yeah.
And this guy comes on, and I'm just like, oh shoot! I was like, this is good. Like, this is real good.
Unique.
Yeah, and so I hit him back, and I was like, I want to have this guy on my show. And then they actually flew out to Philly when I was living in Pennsylvania, and they came in studio. He was my first in studio guest. It wasn't even like something that I was looking to do.
Wow.
I had it in my basement, so he came to my house, and he sat in the studio with me for that entire day. We did tons of recording, and we just hit it. We hit it off. I mean, it was a blossoming friendship by the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. We connected on the phone because I remember when you first reached out to me, you said, "Hey, your producer Mark sent me your music, and I love it." And you were doing at the time an underground radio show in addition.
Rage Against Dystopia,
right.
That's right.
And you asked, could you start playing my music on the show?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sure, of course. And then we got to talking some more, and I know we were FaceTiming one time, and you were talking about you were gauging how well I would fit on your show, because I don't know at the time if you knew how much paranormal stuff I'd had happen in my life. You didn't know anything about my backstory, and I remember mentioning, well, I used to be a Freemason, and he was like, "What?" He was like,
"You're on the show."
Yeah, he told that story on our show, and I was riveted. I was like, "All right, this is it makes a lot of sense." Like the way that you. I understand Joel Thomas. Hearing that side of your life, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You want to maybe fly out?" And I remember him saying, "I haven't had any guests in the studio, but you want to?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Let me get a hold of Mark." And Mark's like, "Yeah, for sure, let's go." So we went out there, and we just all hit it off really well. And I remember you and I talked about me doing a song for the Confessionals, which I ended up doing, which was Bigfoot. And then it spawned off. I got a random text from Tony one night, probably around like 8:30 or something. And he said, "How you feel about cryptids?" And I was like, I grew up in the North Georgia mountains most of my life. I mean, we've talked about Bigfoot and everything else. Yeah, I believe in all of that. And he's like, "Do you have guns?" And I was like, "Well, I don't talk about the deep state like I do if I don't." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "How you feel about going in the woods and hunting Dogman?"
Yeah, you need to be strapped with Dogman. That is the one cryptid that I
put a hole in its head, man. I want to do it so bad.
Yeah, you would need to be very, and I recently saw one of your videos, Tony, of when you were talking to Grok, the new speech back Grok about like the Dogman chimeras that the government's created. And Grok was, wow, that was wild.
I didn't expect that. That was such a random thing that I did.
Your face showed it.
Yeah, because I tried doing it again, but I was expecting it to be kind of crazy, and so like I'm not good at acting, so it's just like that's why like even when I do my interviews, it's really like we're not talking a whole lot before we hit record, because I don't want to hear your story. Like if you emailed me, we get a lot of emails, and we have a small team, but they're a good dedicated team, and they go through the emails, and my wife heads up the leadership of that, and she knows exactly what I want. And so she brings a pile of emails to me, and she's like, "Here's emails." We go through every single one, and I pick the ones that I'm interested in, and we schedule them to be interviewed. I don't want to hear your story on, like, say I do a private call with you, and I hear your story, and then I have to hear your story again and pretend I'm surprised by it. You know what I mean? So like, I'm not good at acting. And oh yeah, Grok. So that second one and stuff, I was just like, yeah, this is crazy, but I was just like, this isn't like, it didn't catch me off guard, you know. But yeah, I mean, we went down to Kentucky and we went and hunted the Dogman, and I'll tell you, like when Joel came out to my studio that day, and I think you're okay with me saying this, but like there was an emotional connection between him and I, like a bro level, and you know, like throughout that day, we're having all this conversation, and we're discovering each other, you know, in front of the world, really. And at one point, and this is back when we didn't do video, so this was all audio. So people didn't actually see how it was unfolding. But at one point, Joel was talking about his dad, and his dad's passed, and I could see it in his face. Like there was something that was triggering on an emotional level. And at the end of the day, it was like 10 o'clock at night. And I just said to you, man, like, I was like, hey man, you know, God's got plans for your life and you're not doing it. Just get on board. I said something like that. And I just remember he just gave me this serious nod, and we went back down to Philly, dropped him off and stuff. And, to see where our friendship has evolved from there, I wonder if it would have had that fast track if we didn't open that door of vulnerability on day one. Like there was no guarding with each other. Like for whatever reason, because I'm a guarded person. Like I just generally am. Especially the longer I do this stuff, I'm just like, not everybody gets the inner circle, you know?
Yeah, sure.
And for whatever reason with this guy, like, and maybe it was the Philly cheesesteaks that did it. We shared Philly cheesesteaks. And
That'll do it. That cheese whiz, that'd be bringing people together.
so the best Philly cheesesteak is not even in Philly. It's in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, at a place called the Ice House, and it is just fire. But anyways, that day, like there was a real, there was like a spark of a friendship that doesn't happen often for people, you know? And so when I made that call to him about Kentucky and he's like, yeah, I'm down. That's when I was like, this guy's gonna be around for a while, you know? And you know, that's the thing. Like, I mean, we hear people's opinions on things, on how we conduct our shows and things like that. But at the end of the day, we just are who we are, and we're trying to be as authentic as possible. Like let me put it this way. Nobody sees all of Tony, but what you see of Tony is really Tony. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how to be anything else, and I think you're in the same boat. We're guarded at times, you know, but when you see us doing our thing, that's really us, you know? And so, for whatever reason, that spark started that day, and it just, you know, like we've shared so many moments in how long has it been? Like 4 years, 5 years?
Probably 5 now.
5 years. I mean, we've shared so many moments of just friendship stuff that, like, there's friends that have been lifelong friends that don't have that kind of, you know, and it's not even just him and I, but it's also Ward. It's like us three. Yeah. Like it's unique. It really is. Like, and
that's cool, man.
We had, you tell me when to shut up, but like we had shot a documentary not too long ago. And on that trip, like I was bugging out on some things, and I opened up to Joel and Ward about, something that I don't think I've ever told anybody, but, and I'm fine saying it now, but so growing up, I didn't really have a circle of friends, and I never really learned how to cultivate friendships. I was rejected a lot as a kid socially. And so as I become an adult and I don't know how to hold on to friends, I don't have lifelong friends. I just don't. I don't have best friends that I grew up with, none of that. So my life pattern is every 5 to 7 years, I go through a friendship shift. And there's friends that just fade away and a new set comes in. It's always been like that. And so I told these guys on that trip, I was going through some things mentally, and I just told them, I said, guys, listen, we're right pretty much at the end of the rope here. Like my trend is for some whatever reason, my friends get escorted out of my life and I bring a new set in. I don't really let people get close. And we've already gotten closer than I've ever gotten before. Wow. So I had to be vulnerable with them out in the middle of the woods and just tell them, like, listen, I don't want that to happen here. But if I don't open that door of communication now about this, that's what's going to happen.
Well, you know, my best friends, the connections that I've made was in the woods. Like, that's where we formed our tightest bonds with my closest friends that I can still call and hang out with today. When we were in our 20s, you know, my buddy's mom had a cabin and we would go out and hike and we would make food, and it was this thing. And it's something about the woods, man. Yeah. It leaves you vulnerable. It's a spiritual place. You know, you're open, and you're especially if you're hunting Dogman or whatever you guys are running around doing.
Well, and
that's beautiful.
And I think too, with where he and I started, and then how fast it grew into what it is now. And then, you know, it's just constant growth and evolution, and, you know, even not just with the friend group and how we are as friends evolving, but also just personally how we're evolving as well, and what we've moved into from where we started, all of us. So it's crazy to look back on the beginnings and then see where it's going now. And to what he said too is, you know, he's real guarded. I'm super guarded, maybe more than him. Yeah. And for us to meet for the first time and not be that way at all is unique. And I think that you just naturally feel a camaraderie to somebody. That's just kind of how friendship starts a lot of times.
Yep.
And I think too, he and I have very similar brains with a lot of stuff, because he and I are stupid driven, and like how we try to achieve certain things. I think we have very similar brains with that, because we don't know how to shut that off. And so it's nice to be able to bounce stuff off somebody who's in that same boat.
Yeah.
Because it's tough. It can be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get on a phone call with somebody who doesn't have that gear, and they're like, well, why would you do that? Why don't you just, and it's like, no, you don't understand. Like, I don't have the time to go back like 10 steps and walk you to how I got here.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, this is a very simple example, but how many people like thought it was logical for us to do a 30-hour drive to Utah? They're like, why don't you fly? Because we got things we need to bring with us
Here.
and it just seems very logical to go on this road trip to this mysterious place. And there's so many people that's like, oh, I would never have done that. And it's like,
That's why you're not out here doing that.
yeah, like it's just, and things don't compute with us, right? So like, even we were talking about on the way up here, how like my wife, I don't do vacation. Okay, so like I'm really don't do vacation.
You're like miserable on vacation because
Very,
you're like, yeah.
So I'm trying to compromise, and so my kids want to do the new Mario World at Universal.
You should do that.
Oh, I'm gonna. But here's the thing. I told her that I have some friends with a pretty big show down in Florida. I said, while we're down there, let me hop over to their studio for like 3-4 hours, record bangers with them, and then we can do this as a business expense trip.
Yeah.
And she's like,
Bingo.
do you have any way to turn off that gear? And I was like, no, it's not. I don't know. Like, people are like, oh, did you see the movie? No, I didn't see the movie. Why? Because I don't watch movies. Why? Because I don't do that. Like, for me, fun stuff is sitting at the studio at 1 o'clock in the morning doing things that have to get done because I gotta work. Like, that's fun for me. I don't know. I'm a loser.
You're making things, and when you're making things, you can't listen to a ton of podcasts or watch a ton of things.
You get it.
Dude,
You're doing your own thing,
Yeah.
creating your own stuff.
We joke all the time about, I don't listen to much podcast wise, unless it's, I know there's a specific guest or a specific topic that I really want to listen to. And there's a handful of people that I listen to when it comes to those things.
Yeah.
So it's like, I've got time, especially if I'm working out in the gym or something, I can put that on and do that while I'm there. But I'm also multitasking
go to
because
the
I'm
gym?
doing something else.
You work out? No. Couldn't tell.
But yeah, I think he and I hit it off really well early on because we're very similar. And he was talking about his wife. Like, my girl jokes all the time about Tony and I and how our brains work. He's like, a lot of people don't think like you guys. You guys are thinking on a whole different level because everything's business. Because we're figuring out, okay, if I'm doing this creative thing, how do I turn this into a business?
Yeah.
How do I capitalize on what I'm doing? And I think that's where sometimes we think a little differently than other people in that aspect.
And I wasn't always like that. Like, I was always, ever since I was in my early 20s, I was an entrepreneur type person.
Yeah.
But I listen, I've done anything from Amway to owning my own cleaning company. What else? I owned a record label at one point. Like, I've tried so many different things, right? And I finally found this. But in the middle of all that stuff, I wasn't like this.
Yeah.
It was only this that made me like this. And I think it's because this is the only thing that actually, from the start, had a deeper sense of purpose to it. And when it started clicking, I was like, it was like, what is it? Like, it was like a dopamine hit, you know what I mean? It was just like, oh, I want more of that. I want more of that. And so, like, you know, I remember I put my first episode out, and after 1 week, it had like 200 listens. And I was like, that's bigger than most churches. And I was like, yo, I'm like 3 weeks away from having a mega church. And I just started grinding.
Hilarious.
And I put, it was January 19th, 2017, when we dropped the first episode. My goal by the end of that year was to hit a 5,000, it was 5,000 downloads a week. And I don't think I hit that goal. and I was frustrated by it. Or maybe I did hit the goal, but I didn't hit it. Like I set a goal. It's either one or the other. It's like either that or I set the goal and I barely hit it and I was frustrated with that, but in that process, like it just became this, like, I had a friend, he's still a friend. His name is Phil Anderson. I went to college with him. He's been on my show a couple of times. I think episode 50, he was the first time he was on. He's actually in the intro. He's the one that's like, and dude, he slithered over to me. So like he told me, because he had a podcast before me, and he told me, and it seems so simple to me now, as somebody who like knows what episodes are being released for the next month and a half, the idea of doing 8 weeks straight of releasing a podcast episode was a big deal to me back then, right? I was like, he said, if you can do it 8 weeks, you got something cooking. Yep. And I was like, all right, 8 weeks, that's 2 months. I can do this. And yeah, and I was like, when I hit that 8 week mark, I was like, I'm a podcaster. And then we just started cooking. And, now I don't even know how many episodes I have. It's like 700 something. But the nice thing is, so I don't know, you and I are a little different in this because we were talking beforehand. You said you're kind of starting to step back into the producer stuff and like the post-production, things like that. Yeah. I haven't done post-production on my show since like 500 something. Yeah. And I don't desire it one bit.
I'm enjoying it for now, but there's a very short window where my intern, shout out to Little Comb, he's going to be taking on a lot of the thumbnail creation and the editing. Right now he's doing a lot of the reels and TikToks and kind of short form video editing. Yeah. So I'm kind of training him up, but right now it's going to be a very short window where I'm going to be doing these episodes. Right. Like I'm not, it's no. And which is a lot of reasons why we record live to tape. So, shout out to Alex, by the way. Alex and Master Control helped me out on this episode, but he's hitting buttons in there. So I don't have a whole lot of editing to do other than put the intro and the outro and then, juicy up the audio a little bit. But it's one of the nice things of how we have the studio set up is because we're not doing that traditional editing. If I had to do that, there's no way I'd be editing my show.
It gets to a point where you can't do everything. So I was just talking to another podcaster earlier this week who is getting ready to transition into full-time content creation. And one of his fears was, what if things start dropping off? Like, what do I do? And I said, you put out more shows. Yeah. Like, that's how you offset it. It's like working a job. If you need more money, put in overtime. Right. And, that's when I brought it to him. I was like, it's just at some point, you're going to want somebody to help you with production, because you're not going to want to, because I mean, as the content creators, like you need time to actually be creative.
I'm with you, man.
And that's one thing that because I'm at a point where we're hitting a ceiling in our organization where there needs to be some hires made, but we also need the extra income in order to do that. Yeah. But I'm hammering people within my team. It's like, listen, guys, like everybody keeps coming to me with their problems and what needs to get done, or so-and-so said this and how should I handle that? And it's like, these are things that I don't want to be dealing with, because the whole reason why you have a job is because I was creative and you guys are sucking the creativity out of me right now. Yeah. Like we need to set up a structure that is going to allow me to do what I do best so that everybody else can thrive. And so we're kind of at a point right now where we're trying to figure that out. As somebody who, I didn't go to business school, I was a truck driver that turned podcaster. Like I'm learning as I go. Yeah. But one thing I am definitely learning is that if you want longevity in this game, you need to have a structure set up that allows you, the creator, to be creative, to be what got people in the room to begin with.
Exactly. And that's why I was telling you I was kind of enjoying this process, because now that I have my hands on almost every aspect of it, then I can take that and start training those people and bringing the fresh blood in to kind of help on the production side of things and the editing, because I just need to be able to say, hey, this is how I want it done.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm doing it exactly the way I want it done, which has been freeing and been awesome. I'm on my own if I don't get the deliverable done, it's on me. I messed up because we didn't have an episode that week.
Yeah.
So I have to hold myself accountable right now to be able to then take that and keep building it out, and getting back to, when we started the show, we had the way everything was set up down here, and Stoner helps out. He's amazing. He's built all of this beautiful
Crazy.
studio.
People have no idea. They're seeing this, whatever they're seeing right now. You ain't seen nothing. Do you guys ever do a behind the scene tour? Because
we have. I've done some on my little Osmo cam. I've walked around and done little streams on Instagram and on X and stuff like that.
the tech in here is far more advanced than what I have.
But that's all Stone. He's a professional video engineer. That's what he does now. He's moved on. I'm lucky enough to still have. He was down here last night helping me reimagine some of the things that would be a little bit more, taking some of the tech to me on camera, where I can hit buttons and maybe get me a foot pedal and I can cut cameras and have the audio mixer up at a desk and kind of reimagine some of this. So not starting over from scratch, but being able to, and we had a great conversation. I got real fired up about kind of like the future of how this studio is just going to become more efficient.
That's cool.
Because right now my system, like you were saying, you got to have those systems built. Like I need the thumbnail by this date. I'm figuring all that out to kind of be able to keep expanding out, because I'm overwhelmed right now. I mean, my goal when we came back, we took a break during the summer. There's a lot going on personally with the business, all kinds of things happening. Took a break, came back. My goal was to do 10 episodes in a row every week. We're on 12.
Wow.
So I've been consistent 12 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed to, get it back on track.
Awesome. That's great. That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say something that you taught me early on about podcasting, because sometimes early podcasters, when they first start out, they try to do too much. They'll bite off too much. Right. And one of the things he told me was 1 episode a week. Make sure you're doing that consistently. And then once that happens, and when you feel like you have the space to open up, and then you can do more if you want to, I think it's all about what you can handle too. Yeah. And I think that everybody's got their own platform, how they want to build it. But one thing people expect is consistency with the podcast. Because the weird thing with podcasts is you drop off a week, like that can mess up the whole algorithm. Totally. And then we
took 2 months off.
Yeah. And that will, and
we're still
you can be DOA real quick when that happens. Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if I took a week off. Or 2. Like, I've never taken any weeks off. And sometimes, like, I'm looking at my schedule right now, and it's a little thinner than I'd like. And I'm looking around and like, I need to get some heaters going. I need to find some heaters here. Before I came up here today, I was looking at the schedule and I was rearranging some things to make sure everything fits for the next few weeks. And I was like, we need some heaters, But then I started thinking, like, I wonder if I just didn't show up, what would happen?
Well, the whole thing would fall apart.
Would it or would it not? I don't know. Like, I listen, there might be a time where I socially experiment with that, and I might just not even announce it and just not show up for a week and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you got a pretty good crew. Your brother Jack, shout out to him. He's great.
Let's not do that.
Super nice dude. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that the wheels would fall off the track right away. But I think, you wouldn't want to take too much time.
No, I wouldn't take too much time. But there's a definite transition with the show over the last few years. And with that transition, I've been brainstorming some of the transition that hasn't been executed yet, but I'm starting to experiment a little bit with these live shows. Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if I just showed up sometimes and just talked, for the actual show for the week,
Yeah.
how that would go, because I've never done that.
Yeah.
I don't think I have. I think I might have done it one time. I did that COVID rant, and people loved that because people have no idea. Like, it wasn't on video, but I was standing in my studio with my desk elevated so I could stand up, and I was just going off on the mic for like 45 minutes, and they're like, "That was the best episode ever." I'm like, I don't even believe half the stuff I said in that now. Like, things have changed so much that, like, the things that I've said there, I'm like, I don't think I believe that anymore. But I've been experimenting with the thought process of maybe, because the thing is, like, there was a time with the podcast where it was just like at one time I had like almost, I think it was like around 70 interviews stored that hadn't been broadcast yet, because I was so paranoid that I wouldn't have an episode one day. And so I just interviewed, and just kept going. And I'm glad I did that, because when I moved to Tennessee, I didn't have a place to work. So I just went through I ate through all that. And for months, I didn't do an interview. I just ran through that archive that I built up. But I'm starting to experiment mentally as to how the future of the show is going to be. And there's definitely been a transition since I started. Like, when we started it was very heavy on, like, all I knew was Bigfoot, really. And it was experiences and tell me your story and all that. But as I learned through people's experiences, like I'm sitting there interviewing people. I don't even like calling it that. It's like conversating. But like, I'm picking things up, and I'm like, I've heard this before on this person's experience. Only they were talking about Bigfoot, you're talking about grays, and like, I'm starting to connect dots, and I'm starting to develop my own thoughts and opinions.
Sure.
And over time, my thoughts and opinions start coming out, and we start having more conversation, and then all of a sudden, it's like, there's certain things. And then also, like, when I started the show, I was in a little bit of a dark spot spiritually. I mean, I was always a Christian, but like, I was in the middle of dealing with some social rejection from church folk when it came to what I was doing, and it kind of put me off from the church world for a while. And as I came back around to understanding that in order for my faith to be strong and succeed throughout the rest of my life, I needed to be part of some kind of community. And once I started plugging back in to a community that actually dug what like the church that I'm at now in Tennessee, like, I walk in the first day, I walk into that church, I meet the pastor before his service, and I shake his hand. I'm like, "Hi, I'm Tony Merkel. This is my wife, Lindsay, and my kids." And he goes, "I thought that was you. I subscribe to your YouTube channel." I was like, found my home.
My people.
And so, like, but because of what I do, so I don't even call my show a paranormal podcast anymore. I call it more like a supernatural podcast. And I think that anywhere from Bigfoot, Dogman, to demonic things to grays, it has a spiritual, supernatural element to it. And as I have come to understand things through my lenses, and I feel convictions about certain things, the show has steered in certain directions, right? So, like, I'm not really the same person that started the show. I'm just not. And so the show isn't exactly the same as it was once. And I don't think it will be today, what it is today. I don't think it will be in 5 years. If it is around in 5 years, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the future holds, but the show has definitely kind of evolved over time. And now it's like, I don't want to just run this race to put out an episode. And I think, I haven't had to do this yet. This is breaking news. I haven't had to do this yet, but I do think that if it gets to the point where I'm like, I don't got an episode that I feel comfortable with for this week, I think I might just fire the microphone up and start talking and see where it goes.
Sure.
And I know there's gonna be some people like, "Oh, I don't tune in for this," and it's like, well, then maybe come back next week or don't come back at all, whatever. Like,
and I went solo the last 2 live streams, Strange Happenings, by myself.
How was that?
And it was liberating in a lot of ways, because it was just, it's kind of like put the pressure on myself. I was really prepared, because I'm like, I got to hit all the buttons. I got to do the intro. I'm rolling in the stinger. I'm doing and so it was the prep that I put into it, the love that I put into those episodes. They ended up turning out great. And it was, I could just rant and not have to worry about anything else. And I could just get my thoughts out. So it's kind of liberating in a lot of ways to just kind of have that release of like, oh, damn, Mikey just went off about 30 minutes on JFK and the Zapruder film.
Where'd that come from? Just came from my gut.
And I don't get to do that a lot because we do a lot of interview shows. Like our Strange Happenings is me and Bub. We go over the what's weird in the world. So those live streams kind of have two shows. So like me just ranting, that's a Strange Happenings. It's not our interview episode. Like this is kind of your sit down. And so, I want to hear what you guys have to say. So that's kind of my outlet to, like you were saying.
What's interesting is I'm sitting here thinking like we didn't have any prep, which I love.
Yeah.
And I think you said something like, we're just
he did so.
we're just, he can't help himself. But like, I think you just said that we're just gonna talk and see where it goes. And I'm like, that's my wheelhouse. Like riffing is my wheelhouse. That's why like my show is like a riff. You know, like that's what it is. Like I sit down with people and riff.
I tell people all the time, you're Art Bell in a lot of ways.
Those are shoes to fill though.
But Art had his own flavor. But the thing about Art that is similar with you is you let people talk. You let people tell their story. You're not sitting there trying to push back and what part of this tale is real or poke holes in it in some way.
Right.
It's their confession, and it's the perfect name for the show. Is you let people, and I think it shows to the audience listening that they a lot of times get so many things off their chest.
I think for me and what I started with Free the Rabbits, all was spawned from doing so many different shows, whether it was guest shows or whether it was shows that I ran with other people, where I always felt like I just didn't get everything out that I wanted to say because I've always got so much research that I knew that when I started my own podcast, I wanted it to be mostly just me. And I told you on the phone the other day how I love your format now, because it's kind of like what I was been doing the last two. You're much more dialed in as far as your kind of run a show. Mine's a bit quite a bit more loose, but I was like, that's awesome. I saw Free the Rabbits on YouTube, a couple months back, and I was like, that's dope. Like I would like to figure out a way that I can kind of translate something like that. What Lurks Beneath is a great example, and I think you guys kill that format. It's not necessarily what we do, but you need to have that.
Yeah,
For me, I do so much research on like a specific topic before I do a show.
Yeah,
I even say that I might get 60% of all the research done. I still got like 40% on the table. And a lot of times, like some of that research will find itself into something else where I'm like, oh, this is where I could use this here. But I still like to sprinkle in the guests because that format's good for people to hear the back and forth. And especially if I could bring a guest on who's a little more adept at a specific topic than me, whereas I've got stuff to contribute, but you've got way more knowledge about this, and then we can present it. And it just gives the guests an opportunity to get in front of an audience that they're not normally in front of.
Somebody like Juan or one of those guys that are big, Mr. E, big researchers.
Yeah, and I think that was always something that I felt like doing podcasts before I started my own podcast. I just always left so much on the table where I really wanted to get everything I could possibly get out.
You're at the mercy of the host.
Yeah,
sure. And so like with somebody like him who does a ton of research and like
that format's
there's
tough,
no grift with this guy. This guy does his research. He's been researching.
He's the real deal.
And so when you're on another podcast and the host is interjecting their thoughts because the host is getting excited about what you're talking about, and if the host, like a good guest would, you're going to let the host of the show lead the conversation. So if the host leads it in another direction, you just go with that flow. It's their show.
Yeah.
But then it leaves a lot on the table. And so like Free the Rabbits is a great opportunity for him to not only have an outlet for the world to experience and understand like true knowledge.
Yeah.
But it's a great opportunity that's therapeutic for somebody like him to be able to sit down, do the research, and then just like vomit it out on the microphone and be like, oh, well, we actually made it to 70% this week. That's great.
But, and you're not, a lot of I don't like Y-Files. Love that guy's format.
Yeah.
He's got a great show, super polished. I know he's got writers and a whole production team, and it shows. I mean, it's a really well put together show. But he's definitely got prompter probably happening. He's got a script. You're not reading hardly anything unless it's like quoted from something,
right?
Like,
so
you're just going a lot just from. You probably got some notes and stuff.
So I've got a lot of notes.
Yeah.
But typically, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I've done the research. The notes are there to keep me on
That's
point.
when it's good, though. When you're
Right.
sitting there reading line by line, that's just not engaging.
Right. And you have to make it engaging for the listener. I got probably one of the best comments on Apple the other day, and I thought it was just fascinating. I'm gonna pull it real quick because it's so funny.
Oh, this is what he came prepared for. He's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna find a way to work in I'm getting my flowers today, people."
It made me laugh, but it's actually going to make you guys trip out because of what they said. So it starts with, "I'll be honest. I don't believe or even agree with most of what is said, but the theme song is an absolute banger and the topics are interesting. Joel is a charismatic and entertaining host."
Yeah.
So that is
great.
The key is I get a lot of people that listen to the show that have all kind of different viewpoints. And some of them get mad with some of the stuff I say, and that's fine. You're allowed to. But at the end of the day, what I try to tell them with the show, and that's the whole premise of Free the Rabbits, is getting out of the hole and understanding that most of what we're theorizing is literally that. Theories.
Yeah.
They're not fact. The problem is in the era of the conspiracy theory, which we're in, which started in 2020, really started before that, but 2020 is when it hit
2016,
hard.
15, Pizzagate.
It did.
It's when the whole world started to, but you're right. And then Epstein brought it to another level, and then COVID just blasted
through the next level.
Yeah.
And so what's happened is people have latched onto certain theories and made them their whole lives.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to break that up and say, listen, you can take that on board and say, like, this is what I think right now because this is how I feel about it, but always leave yourself that window to be able to change your mind with new information. One of the big issues I had with Flat Earth was I'm okay with Flat Earth. I'm not a Flat Earther, but I'm okay with it. I've heard all the arguments. I know there's some guys out there who can go up and down with it. I could go up and down with them back too with the opposite argument, but I understand that they believe that. The problem is when you make it a cult-like thing to where now you're fighting with everyone that's against it. The issue is when you're making Flat Earth your first name, that's a problem. But that's not happening with just Flat Earth. It's happening with a lot of them.
Tartaria 101.
A lot of them. The new one,
Beast Tartaria.
The new one's the Little Season. That's the new one that's been real hot the past year. So you got all these different theories that people adopt as their religion.
Oh, it's a religion. Flat Earth is definitely of the guys that they brought to Antarctica and they watched the 24-hour sun go around.
I saw that.
And then you had the guy basically go, "Hey, I watched it for myself."
Right.
"Oh, you're a shill. You're a shill for
How
NASA.
much did they pay you?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, like you said, even if you go back and admit now as a flat, you're so far in deep that you got all your subscribers and you're stuck.
The best part about that whole experiment that went down, there were several of the top tier FEers that were invited.
Yes.
And they all turned it down.
Yeah.
The reason they turned it down is because several of them have very expensive apps on the Apple Store and that people spend money on to see how Flat Earth works as they're walking around. So if they went and it was the point was proven the opposite, it would destroy their monetary gain at that point. But see, that's the problem. These are theories. You should be willing to put those theories up to the test to see whether or not they're true.
So the problem with that is, though, when the theory it becomes your identity. Because now when the theory is taken away from you and proven false, it's literally taking your identity with it.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of these guys who are making it their identity, that's just the way it goes. I mean, it's in a similar sense to if I want to be hold a mirror up and be introspective, right? Like it's like I've been very vocal on my show over the years, and more so in the last couple of years, about my faith, and it's like that is my identity. I will tell you that, like, that's my identity, and so like I'm not I guess absent from taking something so serious and making it my identity. But I'm also very thick-skulled when it comes to that. And if at the very bottom, at the very least, I will say this: you're not shaking me off my identity. Yeah. So it's just like it is what it is. But I think that when you have an identity built around a theory like this, that is possibly able to be proven wrong by a trip to Antarctica, it could be a real burner.
Yeah, I think that was a problem for some of those guys, and some of them initially said they were going to go, and then they backed out at the last minute.
Sure.
And again, back to what you said, your identity. And listen, there's nothing wrong with having your identity built into your faith or whatever else. I look at those as a little bit different because those are catalysts into helping you grow and helping you evolve, but those also aren't theories. Those are it's a different type of theology, right? So you've got these theories that are built around things that could be proven wrong. Like, and people could argue that you could prove God wrong too. There's that argument as well.
Sure.
I get that. The biggest issue is just talking about the conspiratorial community. It's become so divisive and just a bunch of people arguing and fighting. And social media has been the biggest catalyst for that, for sure. But it's like, I remember a day back in like the early 2000s where I would sit down in a room and, you know, people would have a few drinks. We're sitting there talking about conspiracies and nobody fought. You could have a guy in there talking about flat earth and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then you'd be like, hey, did you see that thing about the moon, like not being gray? Oh man, that's nuts. And before you know it, you're having this whole thing and everybody knows that they don't have the answer, but they know something's not right. The problem is everybody knows the answer, but they really don't, because you can ask any flat earther to take you to the ice wall. They can't.
Well, it's a lack of funds, bro. It's a lack of funds.
Well, they actually had an opportunity, and a lot of them backed out of it.
Wasn't there like was it Alex Jones that was saying that he'd fund a trip to the ice wall?
Eddie Bravo. He was going to fly Eddie Bravo to Antarctica, and he was hammered on the Joe Rogan. Had probably been drinking whiskey for hours, and he had like Eddie Bravo in a headlock. He's like, "We're going to Antarctica." He's like, "Calm down, dude." Oh, that's one of the best internet moments in the world.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Like the best one was when he was on Rogan, and I think it was him and just Alex and Rogan
talking about the frogs.
Yeah, that episode, and he's talking and going, and then
about interdimensional beings.
Yeah, and at some point there's just like this awkward silence, and then he's like, "You got to understand something. I'm a little retarded." It's just like.
That's a pretty good Alex, Tony. That's pretty good.
Well, you know, I practice a lot.
I'm a little retarded.
But I lost a listener when I said that line on my show. They said, "I can't believe you said that word." I'm like, and back then I didn't know how to handle people's opinions of me. Like, it was all so new. I was like, oh, I feel bad. I hurt this person's feelings and stuff. And like, I don't want to hurt people's feelings, but I'm just like, I'm not responsible for your feelings. Like, if I was responsible for your feelings, it means I'm responsible for your feelings and tens of thousands of other people's feelings. And none of you guys can agree. And you want me to make you all happy? Right. I can't do it.
Right.
I'm not going to set out to be a jerk, and I'm definitely not setting out to be vulgar or anything like that. But if I say something that upsets somebody, it's part of the job, really. Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, when it comes to any of these conspiracy theories, I have no problem with people believing whatever they want to believe.
Sure.
My biggest issue is when you say you have it figured out for a fact. Yeah. That's the problem, because now you're fighting people over something that I know you can't prove. You can say a million ways from Sunday that, oh, I've got the math figured out and I've got this done or whatever. But you don't. Your math you got from someone else, just like you say these people on the other side of the coin got their information from someone else. Yeah. That's the problem is people, when they adopt something as their identity, if someone believes differently than them, their information's false. Oh, you got deceived. Well, you didn't leave yourself the window to maybe you're also being deceived. And I think we all have to allow ourselves to have that mentality with any of these theories.
Sure.
And I do that all the time, man. I've changed my mind over just the past 4 years.
Me too.
On many things, man.
I've been after this since I was, 18, 19 years old. The first time I ever heard about the Illuminati was around a campfire at a music festival when I was 18 years old. It's like, what is that? And this guy just had me. And the only thing I'd heard of was the JFK conspiracy at that point. And then 9/11 happened shortly after that. And it's like going back and that guy around that campfire always, and I sat there and he told me about the secret societies and this kind of underground darkness that, the deep state essentially. And it just absolutely had me. And I was in. And like you said, people used to sit around and talk about those things.
Right.
But I think people are more open, like people that ridiculed me 10 years ago, I can talk to them now about a lot of things.
They came around.
I've had people call me during COVID and during Epstein and apologize to me because I had knockdown, drag out arguments about pedophile islands and all the, these guys that are the Epstein and even used Epstein in some cases as an example. And they were like, how did you know about that back then?
Yeah.
It's reading tea leaves and recognizing patterns.
Well,
and I even knew about Wexner. Wexner right here in Columbus.
Right here in Columbus.
Right there's his name.
Yeah.
Right there in the Nationwide Children's Hospital. The Wexner Medical Center is right down the road, dude. And go to OSU. Their name is everywhere.
Diddy would have been my Epstein. I was calling Diddy back in 2005, man. And I remember like all the weird stuff he was doing back then. And man, I used to tell guys that were big into hip hop,
yeah,
hey, Diddy's doing this, and they would just laugh at me like, man, you're just trying to take that man down. He's successful, and that's why you're saying that. Like, no, are you not seeing what I'm seeing when he's with these children and he's acting different? You could pick up those signs, and now it's so funny that it's all changed. As soon as it hit mainstream, all those same people got quiet. Then they're all making jokes to everybody else, no Diddy, and then they kind of got all, very solemn around the people they were making fun of.
Yeah.
But you see that a lot. It's even with we were just talking about COVID, a lot of info that came out in the past year or two about things that hurt people during that period of time. And I found that instead of apologizing, a lot of those people just get quiet and act like it never happened or they never said it.
There's a lot of that. Yeah, the people that that's rare. The people that have called me and go, wow, how did you know about this? I'm sorry I ridiculed you. Not saying like, oh, I don't need to be right, but I know back then I'm not crazy.
Right.
I've looked in too deeply. Like I was telling Tony earlier, I had to get out of the conspiracies. It was messing with my head. That's when I started getting into ancient civilizations, which led me more to like looking into deep history and spirituality and like, a lot of different things that kind of coalesced with the paranormal and the UFO phenomenon that I was already into. And the brand The Strange Road is for me to... What's probably hurt us is that we haven't gone niche in one thing. I'm not a cryptid podcast. I want to talk about everything. I'm just trying to be me and pursue my passions and interests. If I go niche and only talk about one thing, I could probably grow a lot quicker. But I just
you don't
not
want to
going
do
to be
that,
happy, dude.
Long
I can't.
term.
We have all kinds of people on from all different walks of life, and that's the way I like it. But I wanted to talk to you guys about like we can get to one thing. I actually wanted to ask a question.
No, you can. Hey man, like I don't know what your time limit is, but we can go. We can keep going. I feel like we I don't know how long we've been going. But I feel like we hijacked the show. So
not at all.
Let's get to the interview now.
Ready, go, action.
That was vulnerable hour, I guess.
Joel, we had you on around the time that you guys were filming Shape of Shadows.
Oh, man.
And that film is fantastic, the Expedition Dogman. But I'd like to talk a little bit about Shape of Shadows and then get into the most recent, the Sasquatch, the Missing Man. Am I saying that's correct, right?
Sasquatch and the Missing Man, yeah.
Sasquatch and the Missing Man. But, Shape of Shadows, for those of you that don't know, you guys were filming in the area of the Uinta Basin, which is kind of adjacent to the Skinwalker Ranch.
We were right next to it.
You were right next to it.
The property lines meet.
So talk to me about filming out there, some of the thing, and you guys should all go out and see this, both of those documentaries.
Merkelfilms.com.
Merkelfilms.com. You heard it here. But talk to us a little bit about what that was like getting out to those remote regions in the process of the people that you interviewed and how all that kind of unfolded.
Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest. Doing that documentary was not my number one choice.
Yeah.
Everybody, when we were discussing what the next one would be after Expedition Dogman, this came up, and I was like, I'm not feeling this one. But it's a hot topic, Skinwalker Ranch.
Yep.
People like it, all that. And I also had a connection. I had a friend, Ryan, who owned the property that bordered it. And I was like, all right, let's go do it, And we go out and we the first thing we do, before we even get there, we get a phone call saying that they, in broad daylight, caught a UFO on film. And so that juiced me up. I was like, okay, I'm ready now,
Yeah, let's go.
Let's
Get
go.
the big guy down.
Yeah, we're ready to go now. So, because there was excitement waiting for us, and I with that was the second one we did, and I think we're used to it now. There's one that I think him and I are probably more excited. Several that we're more excited about that haven't been out yet.
Yeah,
and some of it we can talk about today for sure if you want.
Yeah.
But that one, it was like we're going out there, and this is the second documentary I'm putting out. There's no game plan. There's no and we still operate like this too. And we're actually getting back to this now. But it's like
that's what the magic is, dude.
We just want to put ourselves in the environment where known things happen, exist there for an extended period of time, and let it unfold around us.
Yep.
We don't go out there. We're not trying to bring Ouija boards with us or anything like that,
And we'll do experiments from time to time,
Yeah.
for sure.
Right.
And I think that...
But you at least have some people that lined up to interview potentially.
Not that one. They worked that out
While you were
while we were driving out. They were going around collecting people.
But you know
we
what?
didn't have much.
That could be where the juice is, because it kind of synchronistically falling in your lap of getting some of those folks on camera. And something like a documentary like that, you can always reverse script it. You go out and shoot everything, get all your sound bites, and kind of script it into the story based off of running. We call that run and gun, baby.
Wouldn't you say though that it seems like every time we go out, it's like the phenomenon is waiting for us. It's like we don't need to go out there and hope something's going to happen. It's like we already know. It's not that we know. It's just hindsight. Like after the trip is done, we're like, that's like almost like it was waiting for us.
Wow.
It feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I know probably there's a handful of people out there right now like they're manufacturing it. That's why. But
Can't change everybody's mind.
You can't. But at the end of the day, we do try to approach anything we do ethically. And honestly, one of the new films we got coming out in a couple of months, you're going to get to see that firsthand.
Yeah.
An actual sighting and then the testing of the sighting. That's all I'm going to say, because I don't want anybody to know exactly what's going on. But you'll get to see the process of the checks and balances that we do, because that's something that we try to rule everything out before we bite on, I don't know, that was weird. Like that could be this or that could be whatever. We try to do that because it's important to. And we shot 2 films last year that we are absolutely through the roof for. We got one coming out in a few months called the Meadow Project, and it's built around the book called the Meadow Project. And we went out there with that team. We had to sign NDAs to go out to this area.
Wow.
And nobody's allowed out there. You have to be a serious researcher to even get an audience with this team to be able to go out there.
Privately owned property.
Yeah, like the guy that came up. He came up to Tennessee to meet us to put us through his not disclosure session,
vetting process.
Yeah, like he brought the legal paperwork, all that stuff, and so it was a big hoops jumping session, you know? And I'm not saying that disparagingly. It was the process they set up. And, you know, we went down there and it was magical.
Yeah, that's
like,
all you can describe it as.
I don't even want to say mysterious, because mysterious almost gives it like a spooky vibe. It was like, it had this like, not in a fantasy way, but just a magical feeling about it. And it was good.
It was very eye-opening for me in certain ways, and you'll get to see that on camera about what I kind of went through during that film. But just the connections that we had with the team that was out there, all the different things they did, and the fact that people are going to get to see some of the footage that they took years ago that they've talked about on camera that's going to be a part of the film too. Cool. So it's going to be very interesting for everyone to see all of this old footage that they've talked about, they've never shown, plus all the new stuff that we caught while we were out there. Yeah. So it's going to be a wild ride. And then we spent an entire month in August shooting really a pet project of mine. I did almost 9 months of research on was this interesting connection that I have of Aleister Crowley and his connection to cryptids, and how that his time in the States, what we know of his time in the States, because I've got some wild connections with him being a secret agent of British
MI6.
intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are plenty of documents out there, or missing documents of him being
no doubt
a secret agent up until he died, which is even crazier. So I found some interesting connections with that, plus his connections with the occult, and we were able to tie in Isaac Weishaupt and tie in Juan Ayala into that, and Justin England into that. And then we had several interviews of people. We went to every location that the Melonheads were seen. We had interviews with people in every location that had seen wild stuff. Plus, when we went to Michigan, probably had one of the wildest experiences that we've caught on camera ever in that location.
Broad daylight,
which is even wilder. So that film comes out in August, September of this year too. So we've got some wild films that are on the way this year, in addition to what we already have out there right now.
Yeah.
So like one of the things moving forward, just maybe to clear up confusion for this conversation or people listening, Merkel Media stepped away from film production.
Okay.
So the last 2 documentaries shot were done through Ward's production company.
Dark Collar, right?
Yeah, he's taken over the production.
Yeah. It was cool meeting Ward. He's a great dude. Shout out to Ward. We had a really awesome conversation at Bigfoot Jamboree and just kind of geeked out over gear and production.
He's one of the coolest
cameras dudes, right? And awesome. I'm very happy that you have somebody like him to help you on the production side.
Yeah.
That is so important.
It's huge. And then even like Joe Stauffer.
You to be on camera talent. And you and Joel to be on camera talent.
Exactly.
And be kind of the face of the whole production.
Right. And that's all. I mean, so doing all this stuff, you make some misses.
Yeah.
You know, you swing and you miss on some things. And I'm not saying the first 3 were misses, but you're not always meant to do everything.
Yep.
You know, and when production became an option for film on the table for me, I just automatically default to like, oh, that must be the next step. And I grabbed it and ran with it.
Yep.
And that's fine. But if something is making you miserable, then
and he was miserable. Let me tell you,
it's not for everybody.
I literally, for about
podcasting and production, like we're production guys. So we started a podcast. We knew how to do all of the stuff that you see here.
Yeah.
We just didn't know the podcasting game.
Yeah.
People like Joel and Mr. E and Jay and another guy here in town, Ross Tyson, who's had a great show here, a local show, and for 4 years gave us a lot of great insight and advice. This is like, yeah, we could crush production all day, but you got to figure out how to be consistent and understand the podcast game. Yeah. So it's like, you know, you're a great podcaster, but going out and like, shout out to you for even trying it and taking the bull by the horns, because, you know, maybe you wouldn't be doing that now, what you're doing if you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I enjoyed it, we could have just kept going that route, and I don't think anything would have been bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, I literally spent like 3 to 4 weeks at church everybody's, you know, saying goodbye to each other, going home, and I'm sitting there in a pew just staring at the front of the sanctuary, hating my life. I was like, I think we're going to quit everything. Like I was telling Lindsay for weeks, I was like, I think we're going to sell the house and we're going to get maybe like a couple acres, get a trailer, and we're going to farm, and we're just going to homeschool the kids and sail off in the sunset. Like I was that miserable. I was ready to throw it all away.
Wow.
Everything.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I was sitting there and it just dawned on me that it was like God spoke to me and said, I never called you to be in film production. I called you to be a podcaster.
Yeah.
And podcasting is something that you can't just quit. That's not a job you just quit. I'll let you know when you're done.
Yeah.
And so it kind of realigned things in my mind. It's like I had to take film production away from the table and push it away. And if nobody else wanted to run with it, then it was just going to die. Yeah. If somebody else wanted to take it on, like Ward, who's I think the only other person in the team that had the ability to do it, great, but I wasn't going to be doing it anymore. And since that decision, which was a year ago, I think last April around that time.
Well, you figured it out around the time we were in Washington, D.C., up there shooting a podcast. Yeah. And I remember you telling me, like, I pretty much made up my mind. I want to step away from this part of it.
Yeah. And I since then, taking that step back and falling back in line to what the original call in my life has been, has opened up the door. And sorry if this is getting spiritual for your show. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like,
our show is open.
Okay,
to
cool.
all.
So long story short, I was like, God called me into podcasting. Okay. And once I took a step back into that original placement that he put me in, I started having peace. I started finding joy again. And then there was an expansion of what I'm being called to do. Mm-hmm. And that's where we find myself today, where it's like, I am a podcaster, but God is also bringing me into a whole other line of literal ministry. Like in 2 weeks, I'm preaching at my church.
Cool.
I'm becoming, God is calling me into evangelism. Mm-hmm. And so there's going to be a whole other chapter that's going to be unfolding. I don't know when. I don't have that yet. Yeah. But I know there's things that are happening. Like, for instance, this past week, I was just down in Dallas from Sunday to Wednesday filming a TV show that was filmed with four pastors and me. And it's called The Counter. And they were going into a bunch of different topics, but some of it was aliens, portals, dreams. And they brought me in because that's the wheelhouse. Yeah. And so, like, there's this thing where it's like God is really showing me that the path is not as narrow as it used to be. It's being widened. And I do not believe that I would be in that position today if I was still pushing this production thing. Sure. Because that's not what I was meant to do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And to that point.
But you're still doing production. I mean, you're still a producer. Sure, yeah. You're still a part of all of the films. Like, there's no way you can't be.
But I just get to show up and have fun now.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great.
And to that point, early on, when the production went to Tony, Ward actually felt like that he was supposed to do that.
Step up. Yeah.
But it just wasn't the right timing. Yep. But then when this shook out, Ward said, yeah, this is what I was supposed to do all along. Yeah. And I'm telling you, it's never run smoother. Ward's got everything where it needs to go. Yeah. We're all working together. We have meetings once a week leading up to films. We all know what we're doing. We're all very cohesive now. Yep. Everything's just moving the way it should. And to Tony's point, yeah, the first 3 films were great, but we feel like this next batch of films, because we've shot about 4 now since then, they're all just kind of in the banks being worked by, we got a ton of editors now too, so we got a bunch of stuff going on. Yeah. They're going to be a whole nother level of production. And I've seen some of it, and I'm talking like, we're talking Discovery Channel type documentaries, History Channel type documentaries, like, because of the guys we have on board now.
Like, don't even be surprised. Like, I honestly believe this. I 100% believe this, that the quality that is going to be put out is going to be getting the attention of like places like Netflix. Sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if Netflix knocked on Ward's door and said, we need to talk business. And God bless Ward. I hope it happens. Like, I really do. I really hope Ward lands some kind of big deal with like Amazon, Netflix, something like that, because the quality that we're going to be putting out is literally that level. Like,
That's awesome.
I'm talking from cinematography to the audio to the content.
That's great, man.
Think of it this way. You know how when you watch the adventure stuff like Monster Quest, right?
Yeah.
Like, so back in the day, you're watching Monster Quest. The best part of that show was the person's experience, right?
Yep.
And they're sharing their experience, and then the team goes out and you watching them and stuff. Like, take that at every little piece of those TV shows that you can't even quite identify yet, but you know there's a piece missing in your soul from it. Like, you're like, they just didn't quite hit something.
Yep.
That's because of network producers.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have that.
100%.
Like, you literally take guys who are dreamers, you drop them in the middle of the wilderness and say, go hunt monsters, and that's what you get to experience.
And they're not going to mess up the post-production and the storytelling when you get to post to make your final edits.
Oh, and that's another thing, is that one of the editors, the main editor that Ward brought on, he was a fan of my show. I met him at another conference. He worked for a very large person. I'm not going to drop the name here, but found himself at the perfect timing, a free agent, and he started his own company, and now he is the main editor. So we have somebody who is literally editing this stuff, who understands the content, understands our faith background, is in the same boat, and is insanely talented. Like, this is literally like just the perfect scenario.
That's amazing. I mean, that's all you can ask for, to be able to have. You're on the right track. I mean, that's when, you're on the path, when people like that are falling on your path, and then it becomes a part of what they're supposed to do, and you have that kind of harmonious thing that's happening. You can feel it deep down in your bones.
I 100% agree.
That's how it felt when we were kind of coming up shooting concerts and festivals, and how we kind of formed our team of production. It just, the way that we all met and then worked together for years, and then we all kind of went our separate ways, and of course I'm doing this now, but it was like that magical feeling. You're like, that guy is unbelievable, that guy's unbelievable. I was running that little live concert TV show years back, and just the team, and that's really, I'm envious, but I'm happy, so happy for you guys. But that's, where I'm trying to take my next step also is just to be able to, have those type of people that come in contact in the path that I'm going right now. But it really is I can't wait for those new movies to come out.
Dude,
guys.
Can we tell the one story? Can we tell the one story, you think?
What one story?
The one that you and I went through together. Can we tell that story, you think?
That's one of the films that won't come out till probably next year, right?
So people can have it.
We can talk.
forget by then.
Well, we can talk about it because you and I have.
I think we've talked about it
shown
before.
it. I showed it at the last festival you were at, the one that Crips of the Corn
Bigfoot
hosted.
Jamboree?
Yeah, I took that clip and showed it there to people.
Nice.
So, yeah, I don't see why we can't talk about that particular
It's funny because
thing.
now I have to ask that question because it's not my production.
Right.
So I don't want to.
I don't think it's an issue. I've talked to Ward about it, and I know that particular film's got way more to it than just that.
Yeah. That's a story that still needs to be written. Should I start it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It started in 1985 when I was born. And turning 40 this year, and I got dad jokes. So we found ourselves on a journey, and I'm gonna spare a big portion of the journey because that is becoming very irrelevant. We find ourselves in a hotbed, a location that was known for its activity. And we were on fumes. We were trying to figure out if this was going to be something that it was the front end of it is literally irrelevant at this point. Okay. We find ourselves in a location where it was high activity for many years. And just even that day, we're going down there, and I called up a guy I knew in the area, and I told him what we were doing. So he went out on a motorcycle out into the woods and rode around just to do some scouting for us. And sure enough, that day he is coming down a hill and he slams on his brakes because he's hit there. It was like a valley, And as he hit this valley, water collects down there, and it was real muddy. And there was this big dog print, canine print. Okay, so
Yeah, probably about like that.
yeah, it was huge. It was huge. And he slams on his motorcycle brakes. He hops off. He takes pictures.
If he was on a sickle, he probably wouldn't. If he wasn't on a motorcycle, he probably would have never seen that.
Why is that?
Just because he's in the car, right?
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
because he's on his motorcycle, he probably.
So this was all off road. He was out in the woods.
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha.
His dad had passed away and left him a Honda motorcycle, and he would just take it off roading.
Cool.
And so he was out there, and he sees this, and he sends me a picture of it, and I think he even casted it. And
He did.
yeah, and so we're like, okay, something's fresh. Like, it was a fresh print. Like, the mud was wet. It wasn't dry mud. And
By the way, this is the same area that Scott Carpenter caught the Dogman looking at him behind.
yeah.
This is the one with the famous picture that's online everywhere with the Dogman just looking behind the tree
Yes,
at him.
yes.
So this is in the area where we're at.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's known historical Dogman sightings.
Lots of historical.
But you guys got pulled there from this
yeah.
guy that contacted you.
And so we go there, and I'm battling an upper respiratory infection. I didn't know it at the time, but I was really sick. And my wife told me that when I was done with this trip, she's like, "You are going to collapse." And she was right. But that night, it was probably like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was not feeling it. I was spitting a lot, just a lot of mucus, and Joel and I, and it was pretty dead. It was a pretty dead night.
I'll say sorta. So when we first got there, there was a weird instance that happened where Tony saw like a blue looking orb that was dancing behind the truck when we first parked there. So we see that. I get out and I hear what sounds like a woman singing in the woods. So I follow around and I look to the right up the trail and I can see the blue orb. But when I saw it, it just literally like, and it's like it just sparked. You could see the spark and disappeared. And then I could hear the singing going on in the woods. And that was super weird. So Tony was like, "Man, we just seen some weird stuff." That was initially. So we knew something weird was going on. So we get up to a spot where we're able to build a fire. So we build this fire. We're up there. Now, if most people know how we do the trips, typically at some point they're strapping me up with some cameras and they're just sending me out by myself. So one of these times I'm like, it's, probably around 11:30 at night, dark. They're going to send me out. So as I'm leaving the
Carrying bacon.
as I'm leaving the fire and walking, something is parallel to me in the woods. Parallel. I can hear it thudding.
And that happened to you, me, and Jack when we went out there with no cameras that one night.
Correct.
Because we were glutton for punishment, so we went back just for fun.
Right. And that happened again on a whole
Something
other
crossed the path behind
incident.
us when we were walking. Like, something went right behind us.
Right. So it reminded me of, and this is going to tie into something you asked earlier with Sasquatch and the Missing Man. When I went by myself that last night and went up to where Wes had his encounter, the similar thing happened to me. Something tracked me and was parallel thudding all the way up to where he had his experience. So this wasn't abnormal because I've already had this happen before. So I'm walking, but I can hear it. And when I stop, it stops. Same thing all the way down. So I go way out of the line of sight of them and I can hear it. And I get to a certain point and I can feel something watching me, but I can't see anything. So at this point, I'm going to go on back up there, meet with them, and night's kind of dragging. We're not having a whole lot happen outside of the weird little orb thing that happened early and then the thudding.
And like, when you're out there, it's like you have adrenaline when you first get there. You have a day, a week, a night full of expectation, fantasies, dreams are running through your mind. And then reality sets in and things are dull that night. And you're just like, well, this sucks. I'm cold. I'm sick. my brother's here, and for some reason I want to punch him in the face. Like, you know, like it was just like, you're just like, you're just not feeling it. It's just like, this is dud, and you hate that, right?
Yeah.
And we were at the last.
We were last straw. Like,
that was it. It was cruising
cooked.
in around 2 a.m. And it was just almost there. Maybe early. Maybe it was 1 a.m. I can't remember, but it was late.
I think it was a little later than 1. I think it was at least 2.
And I remember we were about to pack it up.
Yeah.
I remember Ward saying,
Let me paint this picture.
"Good night, guys."
Yeah. So like Ward's getting ready, and Joel is standing out towards, like, on one side of the fire, facing like the deep of the woods, and he's standing there just watching. And I really am like not wanting, like, I'm like, I hate my life right now. Okay. And there were some grumblings about wrapping it up or what should we do, and Joel's just zoning out. And we were all tired. And I walked up to him and I said, "You want to go out one more time?" And he's like, yeah, I'll go. If you want to go, I'll go. And it was like that kind of enthusiasm. Like that's that's literally how the energy level was. Just
If
like,
you're up for it, I'm up for it.
yeah, I'll walk around aimlessly one more time. It's not.
And I remember telling you before we took off, I was like, there's this one trail. For some reason, it caught my eye. A few times I had passed it. We had passed it several times during the daylight. I had seen it. And for some odd reason, it caught my eye. And it was on the same side as where I'd heard the thudding. So I mentioned to him, I was like, we should just go off in there if we run across it.
So what we did, you're talking about the trail.
The trail, you're right.
So what we did is we went down this like very broad trail, and we went down to where the casts were made that day. And we were standing around this spot where the cast was made. It was just one cast. I shouldn't say cast. It was one cast, one print, which is interesting. And at that location, there is a trail going off in this direction and a trail going off in this direction. And so logic says this footprint's going this direction. So let's go down there and see what's up. So we went down that trail and we followed it all the way down to the river. Dead. And we're just like, okay, come back, go back. And we're at this point in my mind, I feel like we don't have like a cameraman with us. Word stepped back at base camp. We went out with the night vision camera, handheld, kind of vloggy style.
Yeah, I've got one like pointed behind me, kind of like Scott Carpenter. So if anyone knows, we've adopted this Scott Carpenter method, and this is by his son's own blessing.
Yeah.
He actually gave us Scott Carpenter's own rig that we've taken out on these missions. So basically the way that rig works is it sits on a gimbal behind you, so it's always stable. Yeah. So it's always
But this one wasn't, though. This was the night vision rig.
Right. So we just had to we just jerry-rigged it and put it like on my
Panasonic,
back.
a Panasonic camcorder on his shoulder. Like, that'll do.
Oh yeah, now it really paints the picture. I've been there.
So like we I almost reclined here. I was getting comfy. So at this point in my mind, I'm thinking we're just getting B-roll right now. Like this, literally nothing going on, and you're irritated because you're just like, I don't want to be out here. Yeah, especially if nothing's happening. And so we come back out to the main trail, and then we start to go down the opposite trail on the other side, and we quickly realize ain't nothing large come through here anytime soon. It was all overgrown. It was going to be a pain in the butt to even go through. And quite honestly, we were tired, and we were like, healthy us with energy? Sure. Right now? Absolutely not. It's going to be fruitless. So we backed out of that after probably like 15, 20 feet and started heading back to base camp. We're like, okay, well, this was just a bummer. And then we came across that trail.
Yeah. And so as we're walking to this spot, I was like, that's the trail I was talking about. And Tony's like, hey, want to go down? I'm like, yeah, like we came out here and I mentioned the trail earlier. Why not? So again, this is on the side where I've been hearing the thudding that followed me earlier. So as soon as we dip into that trail, boy, the stink hit us. I'm talking the smell.
Describe what you smelled.
Wet dog.
It just smelled like a wet dog.
Yeah.
It just smelled
Those are the
awful.
reports.
And it just immediately hit him and I.
But skunky too, right?
Very.
Yeah.
It's just, you could taste it.
It was like,
if
yeah,
that
it was like
makes sense.
musty.
Ammonia.
It was musty, but the thing was, it would go in and out. It wasn't steady. It was like
Right.
almost as if it was. I don't think this is the case. I personally, I don't think this is the case. Maybe you disagree, but I don't like it. It was almost as if it was crossing the trail in front of us, taking the scent with it. I don't think that's the case because we at that time, I think we had the lights on and we had night vision. I didn't see anything cross, but then again, with what happened earlier, maybe it was, to be honest with you. So as we're doing this and the smell's coming in and out, it ain't doing me any favors. I've been swallowing mucus all day long.
You probably can't smell much.
I can't. Well, I could smell that.
could smell it.
I could smell it.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And but I was getting sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far we went in, but I
We went deep.
Yeah.
Because we just kept going.
Yeah.
And
it came in like what, 3 times, 2-3 times.
2 or 3 times, but it was heavy, man. And the only other time I've smelled that smell was during Sasquatch and the Missing Man, when we felt like we were surrounded by whatever it was, and it smelled the exact same.
We got to tell the story that didn't make the film for that then, with you and me at the RV.
Oh,
So
yeah.
do that.
So we'll talk about that too.
Okay.
There's a whole piece of that film that didn't.
If it doesn't get
make
caught
it.
on film, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. So
So the smell is interesting. We've talked about this so many times with B. Mills and a lot of other Bigfoot researchers and the smell. So you captured a canine print though, but now you're having an experience where you're in a Sasquatch area.
No,
it is a Sasquatch area too.
And-
So
but it's both.
There's
both.
the Dogman print potentially. Who knows? So you've got maybe a Squatch
So
that's
I will.
on this trail with you.
I'll say I look at the topics. The lines are very blurred at this point.
Totally.
Like I just. Like, if you're like, oh, this is Squatch Terry, I'm like, and Dogman,
Yeah.
and Greys, and fairies, and orbs,
Yeah.
maybe Jesus too, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like anything can happen. And so, and we're in that kind of an area for sure. And it's, go ahead.
The blue orb is interesting, like you guys had talked about earlier, because we had a blue orb experience outside in a cabin right outside of Serpent Mound, and it's fallen through the trees. And our artist buddy that did all of this is like, I don't know, man, that's probably headlights. I'm like, no, there's no cars. There's no road over there. And it's going in and out of the trees. And I started getting hairs on the back of my neck going, whoa. I started to panic a little bit. I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. I don't know if I'm ready. If this is an encounter, I'm not prepared for this. And so, and then all of a sudden it kept persisting. I'm like, I need to go in. I'm starting to freak out. And he was like, something's watching us. So then we come out later and you mentioned the fairies. And it looked like, and I've told this story before, but taking a glow stick and smashing a glow stick with a hammer and then spraying the glow stick juice all over the grass. And it was like, and somebody had told me at a conference that they're called neutrinos, and they show up when they're Sasquatch and certain cryptids, and also fairy activity from time. Because it's like, are these little green, like bioluminescent worms? But they were everywhere, dude.
We had those at the Meadow.
we did.
All over the grass in this open meadow. And we walked out there and I'm like, how far does these little at then I didn't know I call them neutrinos now, with this glow stick juice or whatever this is. And we walk out there and there's this big pile. I go, whoa, what's that? And all of a sudden this animal takes off. And it was big. I'm like, that wasn't a possum. That wasn't a raccoon. I don't know what that thing was. But there's some interesting parallels with just what you guys have talked about.
I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Like, I mean, the more you talk about the stuff, the more you hear about the stuff, the more you draw the parallels, and you just like, this is not as simple as I thought. When I first started looking at Bigfoot back when I was a truck driver before podcasting, I think it was like 2015 when I started coming back around to it, maybe 2014.
Yeah.
I was watching Monster Quest, and that's what got me back into it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, because at that time I was like, these are just hairy creatures out in the woods that we can't find. And I was like,
I'm more and more convinced that it's beyond
Oh yeah, of course.
Flesh and bone, dude.
Oh yeah, 100%. But back then, I was like flesh and blood, and I was like, these people on TV are idiots. Like I was like, I told my wife, I said, because she was with me from the beginning of this stuff, and I told her, I was like, listen, on the weekends, I'm going to go up in the mountains. If where we lived in the Pottstown area in Pennsylvania.
Poconos?
No, I didn't go to Poconos. I would go up towards Hamburg, the Appalachian Mountains up there. Okay. In the South, we say Appalachia. Yep. Up in Hamburg, it's like Appalachian. But I would go up there and the Appalachian Trail. And I was like, listen, people are saying they're seeing this creature up there. I'm going to go find it. And I'm going to do this in about a month. It's not going to be hard. Like I was like, these things are 7 to 10 feet tall, huge. The one in Carbon County, Pennsylvania, is a white Bigfoot.
Yeah,
I'm going to go find this and solve this.
Yep, that's the Minerva monster here in Ohio, and I
still haven't, but it's got more complicated. So, anyways. When this smell comes in and we keep going in deeper and deeper, I get sick. I get sick to my stomach and I'm like, yo, I got to take a second here. And I think I leaned over, right? Like I was kind of like ready to hurl.
Yeah. So you set down the night vision camera.
Yeah.
And
I squatted down. That's right. Yeah.
Handheld, you were walking with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vision. It's like on a little handheld tripod, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So he set it down on the tripod. I was kind of... my back turned to him, kind of looking around. I was shining light. And you'll catch it on camera where I said something about maybe if we just don't want to see it, we'll actually see it because everybody that sees this stuff never wants to see it.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It does sound like that.
So around that time, we made a decision to just go lights out. And we're just like, listen, let's just go lights out and just squat here and just see what happens. And that's when you said that.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure we were completely lights out because when you said that, I was like, maybe that's it. You know, and I said to myself,
Ronnie Vernay from Expedition Bigfoot. That's one of his big things. He would just like to be out by himself and he would just go out there and he was like he had a more spiritual a way to attract it with like almost like your heart's open. In sort of like giving off a vibe to allow the experience to happen. So maybe, I don't know if that's what you guys were maybe instinctively doing.
For me, I just was mentally just saying in my head, almost like I'm not tricking myself, but in my head, I was just saying, don't want it.
Yeah.
Don't want it, man. Just don't want it. And
yeah,
I mean,
the craziest thing in the world happened to us after that.
So I'm kneeling down, like I'm squatted down. So like the camera is on like a tripod about that big. So it's really low to the ground. In fact, there was a piece of grass in front of the lens. So I'm blurry, unfortunately, during this whole thing. But we hear walking behind the camera.
Yeah.
And we both hear it. We're like, you hear that?
Yeah. And we're talking bipedal too. It wasn't that you heard multiple, but you could hear it thudding and it was picking up pace and it was big. We're talking massive. And it ran.
Oh, no. You can't tell it that fast.
Okay.
You can't tell it that fast.
The suspense builds.
So we first hear the walking.
Yeah.
And we both recognize that we hear the walking. And that's when I stand up. And you only see from here down, which is good that I was on camera. And when you come over, and I think you shine the light or something. I feel like the lights went on at one point. Like not extensively, because when the event happened, it was dark out.
Right.
But I feel like he hit the lights to start shining because we heard walking and we don't see anything, but we both heard the walking and you catch it on camera. Like you see us react to it. You see us say, do you hear that? Yeah, I hear that, you know? And that's when I stand up and about 20 seconds later, go ahead.
Yeah. So at this point I've kind of got my back turned because I'm looking the other way. And I typically do this on these trips anyway because I'm just super paranoid. So I'm always trying to look behind us if we're walking, always. So I've got my sort of back to him. I'm not even saying completely, but it was kind of sideways. And something bum rushed us. And I mean, it was huge.
Huge.
And you could hear it thudding up to the camera, and we felt the whoosh from the actual wind of it. So you can hear me yell on camera.
Displacing the air around it, and that's rushing up to you.
You can hear me yell on camera as I'm flipping around. He draws. You'll see him draw on camera. At that point, I'm drawing on camera. And we're hitting the lights, and there's nothing there.
Right.
Nothing at all.
So, and the thing is, like, we did, like, what's really cool about this situation is our reactions were caught on camera.
Yeah.
And we had a shotgun microphone facing us. Now, you doing production understand what a shotgun microphone is and how it operates. It's not going to pick up a lot of audio from behind.
Right. Or around.
Bro, it was so loud that you actually hear it running up to the camera.
Wow.
Like, you hear it, doo, 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 and that's the rhythm. It was like, boom, boom, boom,
it's probably picking up the vibration through the camera, through the tripod.
That's a good point.
And then into, like, you're hearing that whoop, whoop, whoop. That's probably just vibration.
Well, it gets crazier. So at this point,
we draw. Nothing's there. I want to stress. We hit the lights.
Yeah.
Guns are pulled. It's right there. It ran right up to us, and it's
within
not
about
there.
2-3 feet.
I'm talking. Yeah, we're talking.
Cloaked.
It's right there.
It's not cloaked.
Like, there's no cloaked figure.
We don't see anything.
There's actually nothing.
Like I'm talking, like, from me to the table here. Like, it is right there.
Right.
I don't want to. I can't stress
Because
enough.
The cloaked Bigfoot, you can see the shimmer. You can, what Bruce McAfee describes up there in Lima.
Yeah, kind of like the Predator.
Yeah, those. So you're not seeing anything.
Nothing.
I wish. I would have pulled the trigger. Bah! See what happens.
Are you seeing, like, branches moving as it's
Nothing.
moving around the space? You're kind of in an open area, though.
Nothing.
You're on a trail.
We're on a trail, but it came up out of the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the camera was facing, it was on the edge of the trail facing across the trail where we were standing.
So we see that. We start to make a few steps back. On the radio, Ward hits us up. He said, "Man, you guys okay?" Because he heard me yell.
He thought we were clowning.
Yeah, he thought we were messing around. Well, then it gets crazier. Right around that time, it is like a pack of monkeys start going off.
Nope. Before that, the scream, the first scream. So, like, we're talking, like, that thing runs up on us. We draw, he radios in, we holster, and then we hear behind us one yell, and it was just like that.
And then,
I think that's when Ward called in.
Yeah.
I think that's when Ward called in.
Those are the females that do those crazy screams.
And then it was like, I remember it was going off, and Ward's like, "What's going on out there?" He still thinks we're playing.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's going on out there?" I was like, "It's like you can hear me on camera. It's like a pack of monkeys out here." Yes. Like, it sounded like they were. Whoop, 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 whoop. So it's going insane, and we're like, "Oh,
damn."
we're like, it ain't just one out here. There's a pack of them out here."
But you can't see anything.
This is the Planet of the Apes, man.
How far away? How far away are the sounds?
So the sounds are definitely
20 yards, 50 yards.
Probably.
Yeah,
like, they
I'd
weren't
say
super close.
They weren't. Yeah.
In your perimeter.
Yes, in our perimeter.
Oh my god.
So it's going insane at this
I'm
point.
reliving this right now.
You got the audio?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we got all the audio.
Yeah.
When is this coming out?
And the crazy thing is, we recorded this whole thing happened like a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yeah. The film will come out because there's more steps to the film that's going to be shot. Yeah.
It's still writing the story.
Yeah. So it'll come out probably around next year because we've got 2 films before that.
Some pickups and stuff.
Yeah, well, we've got some additions to the film that we're going to add. There's off camera. We'll talk to you about it. We'll talk to you off camera,
bro.
But it gets even crazier. So we get back to Ward, and Jack, and they still think, what were you guys doing? Are you making us like, no?
Could they hear?
Yes.
Yeah,
they heard
They
it just.
thought you guys were
Yes.
making
Yeah.
this and
Yes.
So-
that's how loud it was.
Stir
They
it
could hear.
around.
They could hear it back at base camp.
So Ward is like, you
you're
guys weren't
deep.
playing. He asked us several. You'll see it on camera. You guys weren't playing. Like, no. Like, why would we even do that out here? Like in the first place, we've never even done anything like that before. So why
No.
would we start now?
Yeah.
But I think it was so bizarre. He just had to make sure like 3 times. Like, are you sure? He's like, oh my god. Like we heard this. Like, what is that? Like, yeah, it sounded like a pack of monkeys. Didn't it? He's like, yeah. So while that's going on, something swoops over us, flies over us,
Real low.
and we look up. There's nothing there, but we can feel the
And when did
over
that
us.
happen? When's the last time that happened to the team?
could have been an owl.
I think it was.
Yeah, but owl, you know.
But all right, so
Could've been
there's symbolism with the owl stuff.
Oh sure, they're ETs. I think.
But
that's my experience.
when's the last time you had something swoosh over your head? It wasn't with me. It was with somebody else in the team. Dogman in Kentucky.
Flying
correct.
dog man.
Yes.
Dogman in the
So
trees, I
in
think.
the trees
Yeah.
when we were out there during. So again. If you can't record it, we don't put it in the film generally.
Well-
Sometimes we'll report what we see.
But you
obviously,
also had like ent experience
Right,
there
right,
too, right?
right,
That's
for
a whole,
sure.
That's a different thing. That like the
So-
walking tree thing. You guys had a piece of that in your
correct.
Dogman.
So that happens. The whoosh thing, and it could have been
That's
an owl
separate,
for
yeah.
sure, right?
Yeah.
But again, we look up while the whoosh is happening, and we don't see anything. We just feel it.
Yeah.
And if it was an owl, it was a cloaked owl. Like that's all I got to say. There was nothing there at all, and it's not like it was one of those nights where it was pitch black. Like you could, it's like you know how those night skies are kind of gray that you can kind of see. It's,
Well, the moon is the light from the moon is diffusing through the
Right.
clouds, so
Right.
it's like the haze actually turns into a softbox,
Right, and that's pretty
it
much
helps
what
you-
it was.
It helps you see better,
Right. And that's pretty much what it was that night. So at that point, we're like, let's get out of here. You know, we just had a crazy experience. We're all freaking out. We get in the truck. Don't end there. We're driving off, and the blue orb shows back up. Tony sees it follow us all to this railroad track, and then it sees us go across the railroad track and then dances and just leaves.
Jesus, bro,
Yeah, yeah.
blown away.
But you know, we got the in-house biologist,
Yeah.
Justin England,
Oh, yeah.
who reviews everything. We let him listen to everything. We let him review everything because if there's any person that can track it to an animal and say like,
Sure.
this is an animal, this is this, we're going to try to rule that out. So we know after reviewing the sounds that some of them do sound very owl-like.
Yep.
When all the whooping was
They
going on.
didn't. I personally, I don't know how about you, but for me, I stand by it. What I hear on audio is not what I remember hearing in person.
Correct.
Now, I will say
that's not common, but it has happened.
I will say room for error. I had monsters on the brain. That scream happened 100% the same on the audio. It's all the same. And maybe my brain just turned it into monkey sounds. But what my brain remembers hearing was not what we recorded on the audio when you listen back.
So
You too?
same. I felt like it was monkey sounds too, because you'll hear me on camera say it sounds like a pack of monkeys. Like that's what it sounded like. So we let Justin look at it.
And we were hightailing it out of there, by the way. I'm not going to lie. Like, we weren't sticking around. Like, it sounded like an army of monster monkeys were coming for us.
So right when you heard it, you started running.
We weren't running.
Well,
we weren't running.
You were
moving
moving
out of there.
but you were
we were swiftly walking.
making your way back to the base camp.
So we let Justin take a look at it and listen to it. And one of the things Justin told us is when it comes to Bigfoot, they've been known to mimic sounds a
Oh,
lot.
sure.
Yeah.
And they'll try to mimic whatever wildlife's in the area, specifically owls, they'll try to mimic.
Yep.
And he said that you can tell the difference between a real owl sound and a mimicked owl sound.
Right.
So we let him listen to it. The first sound, the first like that, that's what he heard that and said, I don't know what that is. He's like, that sounds like what people normally say they hear when they hear Bigfoot sounds. The ones that followed after it, he said, sounds like something's trying to mimic an owl, is what he said after listening to it. So he reviewed it and said, it's in this big gray area. He's like, it's not definitively owl sounds. He's like, yes, there are some that sound like that. He's like, but I know for sure that first sound is not. He's like, after that, it does sound like it's almost morphing, like it's trying to sound like an owl or multiple. It doesn't sound like it's one thing. It sounds like multiple things are out there making these sounds together. So at that point, we're like, okay, yeah. We knew we had an experience because something ran up on us. And even Justin said, he's like, listen, big owls can run up on people. He's like, because there's some great owls that will, they got 2 legs. He's like, they'll run up on you. Headlock. He said the problem is, he's like, you would have seen it. You would have known that it was something physical there. He's like, to look and shine the light there and nothing's there. It's like it just evaporated whatever ran up on you.
And on camera, you'll see it, like how fast it happened. Like this wasn't slow where it's like, oh, maybe it got away. Like you hear it on camera with the shotgun microphone pointing the opposite direction, running up to us. And you see the reaction of the draw, lights go on, nothing. I mean, it happened fast. And it's just like, it's something I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life. Because so I'm the kind of person that I go from one extreme of saying, I'm gonna solve the Bigfoot thing in like a month. These guys are idiots. To now I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever see one. And to have the experience that we had, in my mind, if that's the highlight of my monster hunting career, I'm okay with it because it was so real and so bizarre.
Visceral is a good word for it.
It's like it's the mind twist that I enjoy, right? So like I'm hunting for that mind twist, and that was a pure mind twist from the beginning to the end of the experience. And I'm sitting here thinking like I might be misremembering the first scream totally. It was a scream, but I remember when I was just doing the scream, I was like, I might have got a little exaggerated on that, but I'm not sure. Do you remember how it was? It was a loud scream, right?
So I don't know if I remember the scream the same way you did.
Really?
What I remember was that first, and then when it did, it was like, and then just going, it just sounded like if I was in the zone where there would be a bunch of monkeys. That was the first thing I thought. Yes. And I felt like that it was that feeling, that sound that I heard. And then coupled with what we had just experienced, something running up on us that was big. Big. And then, and again, in retrospect, we went back and listened to it and they did sound, some of them, owl-like. So then, we're going to be logical and say, well, there were owls. It's like, well, let's let Justin take a look at it. Let's let him listen to it. He knows, animal sounds in and out, just about every animal on the planet, which is insane. And he quickly said, yeah, these right here, but no to the first one. He's like, honestly, it sounds a lot like what people say they hear when they hear Bigfoot whoop. And he said after that, he's like, it sounds like something's trying to mimic an owl. Not that it's an owl, but it is trying to switch to an owl-like sound.
Yeah.
In that same area, we went back to that same area to film a scene for Sasquatch and the Missing Man. So in the Sasquatch and the Missing Man, we had reenactments, and they had 2 actors pretending to be the brothers. And that area that this experience happened in is where we shot the reenactment. And so it was cold out, and I was still in charge of production, and I literally didn't have a job. Like there's nothing for me to do. So these guys, it's cold out, and I'm sitting in my truck with the heat on, just chilling, and I was bored. And I didn't want to get cold though. So I was sitting there and I was like, I'll call my parents. I haven't talked to them in a while. So I call my parents and they have me on speakerphone and we're talking, not telling them what I'm doing. And I hear something outside and I cracked the window open just a little bit. And I hear this clicking sound like the Predator. Knowing what I've been through at that location, that's what my brain is identifying it as. I'm like, that's weird. That's weird. And so it was off kind of in the distance. And so I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my parents and I hear it again and it's louder and louder. And then at one point, I'm talking to my parents, and I'm like, just listen. And all of a sudden, it's like right there, loud. And my mom goes, "Put your window up right now." And I was just like, and so I put my window up, I say goodbye to them, and I get out and I walk over up to the guys where they're shooting. And I heard it up there a little bit. And I bring this up because there's been debate amongst the team as to, is it natural? Is it a frog or whatever? I still don't think it was a frog. But what
Justin said it could be a shoe bill.
Yeah, which would be better than finding Bigfoot.
Oh my God! Please let me run into a shoe bill out there.
Yeah, they're supposed to be in the Amazon.
I know,
right?
they're like dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Well, what he said was that it's such an exotic animal. Sometimes people will have these exotic pets legally, and he said the shoe bills are known to either get out or they're let out, and they'll just be in some weird place.
That's wild.
And they make that clicking sound like the predator when they're out there. So he mentioned that, and I told Justin, I was like, "It ain't no shoe bill, Justin." Like,
well, I'll tell you, what's interesting about that whole thing is, and I haven't heard it yet. A friend of mine sent me, I think, 1 or 2 clips, and I just haven't listened to it yet. Or no, he didn't send me clips. He sent me the episode number. But Expedition Bigfoot, Russell Accord.
Yeah.
Apparently, in the latest season, it's a thing, at least on 1, maybe 2 episodes, where they recorded this same sound.
The clicks and the pops.
The clicks.
I've watched it every episode of the last season.
What do you think of it?
That show's it's the most intriguing Bigfoot show out there by far.
Yeah.
I mean, even Dr. Maria Mayer is like blown away by half the shit that they find with all the nests and the sounds. When you guys mentioned that there was nothing there, it reminded me of when Ronnie Vernay, who's not on the cast now, they replaced him from Biko from Alone. Mm-hmm. He's on the new season. But Ronnie and Dr. Maria Mayer were in this river valley, and there was a limestone cliff, and they were just sitting kind of regrouping, and all of a sudden they heard something down in front of this cliff wall, and they pull up the camera with the flashlight, and there's a shadow on the wall, but there is nothing there. And they're sitting there for minutes, and this thing it's there, but they can't see it. There's nothing there, but there is a shadow that they can see that's casting on the back wall. And Dr. Murray, she's just like, there's something there, but we're not seeing anything. The camera's not picking anything up. Mm. And even the FLIR or whatever else they had.
So what's the theory? Is it like, was it like maybe like a predator translucent thing that was casting a shadow then?
There was no predator. They didn't have the translucent, that effect. There was just nothing. Like you guys said, the only reason why it actually cast is because of that limestone wall back there. So if you guys had something to cast a shadow on, maybe you would have seen a shadow potentially on a flat surface like a wall of a canyon. So that's where I'm like, and they have it on video. The only way, and you can see the shadow move, and it's bipedal, and it's got arms that are moving and big long legs that are moving, but there's nothing there. I mean, she's literally has one of the cameras. I want to say not the, it's not the night vision. It's one of the thermal, where it's not red hot or yellow even. Mm-hmm. You can just kind of see an outline, but there's not really a heat signature coming from it. 'Cause, I mean, that's the only footage that I've seen that I can even think of that, and they're just like, it's right here. We know it's there. We could hear it walking up. That's why I was like, damn, that's just very similar to what you guys experienced. Mm-hmm. And the nests that they're finding are creepy, dude.
I gotta get them on the show again.
It's wild.
I gotta talk about this stuff with them.
But Russell Accord's amazing.
Yeah,
that guy is incredible.
He's a good dude. Like next time he's in East Tennessee, he's gonna go on a 2 to 3 day Dogman hunt with me. So yeah,
bring the crew.
Yeah, no, we're not bringing the crew. It's just gonna be him and me.
That's awesome.
And I think we're going no cameras. We're gonna go out there to slay. And
that would be, I mean, you're going to get more experiences if you don't have a bunch of, and I like the way those guys do their production is they have they're the most high tech, I think, they are of anybody using the drone technology and different things. But even when it comes to all the technology they have, they're still pretty lightweight.
They are lightweight. I think that the technology they use, they have the benefit of of filming in 2025.
Exactly.
You know, like when
Finding
Bigfoot, they didn't have that option. It wasn't even an option.
No,
you know,
they didn't.
But what they were doing was high tech stuff. They had this pole coming off with night vision facing them, and that was the cat's meow back then. You know.
But one of the issues with Finding Bigfoot is it's a TV show, so each episode they were in a different location.
Yeah.
Whereas Finding Expedition Bigfoot,
One season, yeah.
they are one time during a season they went to another area just because the algorithm and the AI was like, well, they're actually moving out because the head guy is the host.
I think it was Alaska, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But it kind of where they were at in California was dead. There just wasn't anything going on. And so like, well, maybe they're migrating. So they used all of this AI multi-agent technology to kind of see where they're coming up and migrating up through the Olympic Peninsula. And that's what this new season is. They're following them up and following this migration pattern to where it basically bottlenecks. And that's where season 6 is right at that bottleneck because they mapped with AI all of the sightings over the last 100 years all the way through that coast. So but they're dialing it in season by season.
I really hope that they decide one day to come to the Smokies. Like we can take them on trips.
They've been to, maybe it was North Carolina, the Blue Ridge Mountains. I think they were in North Carolina potentially, but
was it?
For the most part, it's been out west.
Yeah, I selfishly speaking, I'll bring them coffee. But they're good people. They're really good people. I got to know Russell. I've known Russell before he was even on the show. And Dr. Mayer. I met her. She called me, I think it was last year, and she gave me the best encouragement, man. Like, cause
Seems like a good person.
She called me and she's like, I want you to speak at a conference that she was, and I said, you don't want me speaking at your conference. and she's like, no, I do. And I was like, no, you don't. Like, I said, I'm woo woo. Like, I'm crazy. I go from like you go to from like 1 to 10 and I start at 10 and I go beyond. Like I said, you don't want me speaking at your conference, and she's like, actually I do. That's the kind of like we need variety. Like everybody is science and we need somebody that's. And I'm like, oh, okay then. And I had another conference I was doing that weekend, but I say that because she is such for somebody who is so highly educated and doesn't need to be calling Tony the podcaster. She's been on National Geographic. Yep. She's featured on there. Yep. Like, she's very humble. Yeah. And so I think that whole crew is cool. And, you know, if they ever lose another cast member, I'm just saying, I'll right here. Okay. Like, you don't have to work around my work schedule. Like, this is what I do, you know? So, but we should tell them about Washington that night outside the RV.
Yeah, so this is part that didn't make the film. And again, there's a lot of stuff that happens to us out on these trips that don't make the film. Sometimes we get in front of the camera and talk about it if it makes sense to. But generally speaking, if we don't catch it, it's just hearsay. Yeah. And people are going to say, of course you're lying. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell the story now, though.
It's great for podcasts.
Heck yeah.
Right. So, you know, we're in the camper and we're being surrounded by something, multiple things,
100%.
So we hear you can catch like on the film, the whistling that we hear and some of the things that are going on. You know, we step outside and this is when we smell the same smell that we smelled at the other place. Mm-hmm. So Tony and I are outside, we smell it. And I had already went up. Whatever had followed me up, broke away from whatever pack, had followed me up to right around where Wes had his experience. I came back, and at that point was when we had the old weird like moth orb thing that happened, and they were telling me about it because I wasn't there for that.
Yeah.
So at this point, everybody's packing it back in to the camper. Tony and I are outside by ourselves at this point. When I say that I felt a growl. I mean, I felt the growl. Not I heard it.
It was internalized.
Infrasound.
Vibrated my entire body.
Yeah.
It was like, ooh, and it just, I felt, and Tony said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "No, man, I felt that." And it felt close. I mean, real close. And you could just feel it. Like it just vibrated my whole body. And he felt it too. We went back in there. We told them, man, whatever happened when you guys left and we were out there by ourselves, it's almost like whatever they were doing, very similar to what happened with Wes and his brother, there were only two of us. So I know they were probably thinking, one, who is this idiot that just walked up here by himself away from the pack? I was out of eyesight from them around Wes, and this thing tracked me up there, whoever it was. But I'd come back, and then at that point, whatever it was close. And
it was really close.
It was real close.
Like we actually stopped, turned around, and walked to the back of the RV because we thought it was right there.
Yeah.
And
maybe it was when it happened.
And let me just clarify: we didn't walk
Talking
around.
about Wes from Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So like, it wasn't like we nonchalantly like, what was that? Like we were like, okay, we're gonna peer around the corner real quick, because it was like it should have been there. That's how it felt, right?
Yeah.
And what Wes, I mean, with his experience, I mean, they came up and it was behind the car, and it growled, and he described the same feeling, and he even said to me that when we were filming at his studio, his story. I asked him, it might have been off air. I'm not sure if it was recorded or not, but I asked him, I said, do you think, and I think it was, I said, do you think if you and your brother were out there that night without a vehicle as any kind of shelter, do you think you would be here right now? He's like, no. Like he was convinced because what he saw, what happened that night, especially when they backed I think it was a Trailblazer or something, when he backed the Trailblazer back out onto the road because they were on a logging road and pulled off to the side. And then the show happened with these things coming across the road in the tree, getting down in the spider crawl and all that stuff. Like I'm telling you, like what happened to him that night, if they were not in a vehicle, the way they were acting, they would have popped his head off. Like the guy, the whole thing with the missing man, Sasquatch and the missing man, it's because we're at ground zero where this legendary experience happened with Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles. And we're documenting this area, ground zero. And like 200 feet away from ground zero, we find a van that has a guy set up a camp and he just abandoned the camp. And he was gone. Yeah. To this day, we haven't found him. He's a missing person.
Left 2 jars of weed out there, which was even crazier.
You ain't leaving 2 jars of weed. Somebody knows that.
Yeah, we found and he wasn't there that long because his toilet was unused.
So what was this guy? Was he out there cultivating? Did he have some plants?
So what happened? We filmed this thing. We come back to our homes. Me and Wes get on his show and talk about what happened that previous week. Somebody listening knew this guy because we got his name off a card that was on the window. And they contacted us and said, and it was his ex-fiance. Yeah. And she's like, we've been looking for him. Where was his vehicle? So we tell her. So she gets involved. She winds up taking possession of his vehicle because they had to tow it out of there. And I had texted her shortly before the film came out and was released just for an update. And she said that they had not found John, but from the time we filmed to that point, the police had swept that entire area and they didn't find John, but they found 4 other dead bodies. What? Yeah. Yeah. And like 2 weeks before the film comes out, we actually had to edit this into the film. There was a police report at that area. A biker was riding his bike and he reported seeing a human skull like off the side of the road. And when the police came out like a few days later, because up there when the snow hits, you're not getting up the mountain. Right. When they finally got up there, they found not just the skull, but other body parts. And I think this was almost like a cover up because they posted on their Facebook that it's believed that this is the body parts of John Guffey. But
they never committed to it and said they never sure.
But here's the thing.
That it was.
It's the same area that they already swept. So John goes missing. They sweep the area. They find 4 dead bodies. None of them are John's. And then almost a year later, there's body parts at that area. and they just conveniently are Johns.
So you think that maybe they were planted from something else?
I'm not saying
cover?
that. Nope.
Or-
I personally, what I think is that you have rogue Sasquatch up there that are aggressive and making people go missing. I have two theories. One is that they're making people go missing and people are finding body parts that are left behind, or that area is a dumping ground for illegal activity.
And you got to understand too,
That makes
this is a
sense.
national park.
Or a serial killer.
And this is a national
large.
park. So there's a lot that goes on in national parks. We all know that.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the other part of it is this.
Is there some kind of underground base or weird activity? Something like that happening?
But I could tell you when we went up there and interviewed Wes and Wes took us up there, that was the first time Wes had ever been back since the incident.
And is that pretty much what got him into starting the show?
So he started the show because they had their experience. They started talking about it. They got this is what I remember of the timeline. I wasn't around in those days, but it got a lot of traction. Like people were like asking questions and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's
so
like one of the only cryptid podcasts around back then.
And him and his brother wanted to find answers. And they thought the best way to do that would be to interview people who had experiences as well.
Wow.
So they went to a local radio station, if I remember correctly, and pitched starting a radio show. And they turned it down. And so he started Sasquatch Chronicles.
Wow. Amazing.
He like they were not interested in the topic. They actually were up there because they lost their father and they were having a rough time. So they decided to blow off steam and just drove up there one night.
Wow, how synchronistic is that? That's like, whew. That's magical. Amazing.
So I mean, that trip for us was pretty wild.
I'm still stuck on the bodies that showed up.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck on this guy is still missing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And don't listen to the people online because there was all the skeptics. As soon as that came out, they said, it's been proven he's not missing anymore. And it's like, no, it's not. As a matter of fact, the police never proved that was actually him.
See, that's the thing. Like people get so excited to try proving other people wrong, right? And they put words in your mouth. Because like they try to make you feel like you're trying to say something you're not trying to say.
Right.
Like we're not private investigators. We just documented our journey and is sharing with you.
This is what happened.
This is what happened.
Yep.
And the people that want to like they here's what it is. They treat you like you're trying to pull one over on them.
Internet sleuths are ruthless.
Yeah.
They want to get to, I mean, we had a TikTok that blew up from our buddy Brian Singer that had this shapeshifter encounter with a woman in LA. And he told the story and had her on her podcast. And then we had him on. He told the story. And then we made a TikTok and a reel about it. And it started going thermonuclear. I was like, dude, are you sure? Like, you don't want me to take this down? And then she hit him up out of the blue and was like, can you take that down? There's people on the internet, not from our video, that are trying to find me. There's only so many. I'm not going to tell you where she's from. She's brown and a nuclear scientist. There's only so many of us. And I had to disappear out into the boonies because there's weirdos on the internet trying to find me. Yeah. It's like, you need to take down. So we didn't have to take down our episode, but they get locked in. And the comments were scary in our TikTok comments about this. They're like, they were going to find who she was. And we ended up taking it down for her safety.
Ethical.
Yeah. It's like, dude, chill. Ow.
Yeah. And I understand, like, in the sense that, like, the community that we come from is a skeptical community that, you know, is like,
it's good.
There are people in the world who are holding power and they're trying to paint a reality for you that isn't actually reality. And so that's the mindset.
Yeah.
But and you'll never change that. That's why, like, I don't read comments. Like, I'm never going to change people's minds.
Well, and to that point too, so you're talking about these powers, right, that try to control the narrative. The other part of it is when you are in this space of conspiracies or cryptids or anything strange and weird, right, and you're successful at it, they think you're part of that system now because you're
I'm
successful.
not that smart, trust me.
And
Look, Alex Jones was the first one.
right.
Yeah.
Everyone says Alex had a big, and then he became a shill. Oh, Alex is working for for Israel. He's working for Mossad.
It's the classic
Yeah.
podcaster thing that goes on where if you
Simple.
become successful at anything,
Yeah.
then you have somehow sold your soul or you're bought into
I'll tell you, I had that opportunity.
To sell your soul.
Not to sell my soul, but early on in my, and I don't know if this was an authentic offer or not. There's part of me that says it really might have been, and there's another part of me that says that somebody might have been trying to put me into a position where I agree to do something, and they got me on record, and to basically blackmail me or whatever. But
join a network like Parcast or Wondery? Okay.
Early on in the show, there was a guy who was claiming to be a CIA. What's the term? Like he doesn't like he operative.
Yep.
And him and I were talking. I was green, I was real green.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh man, this guy's interesting. And he had a lot of information. And I was like, this is pretty wild, and he one day calls me, and I'll never forget this. Like I was in my truck. I remember calling my dad afterwards. So I was just leaving my house, and I was pulling out down the road, and I'm on the phone with him, and he's doing some small talk with me. And he goes, let me ask you something. I said, what's that? And he goes, would you be willing to maybe once every 10 episodes do sow disinformation?
Wow.
Yeah. He said not every episode, just every, once every 10 episodes, put a story out there that we give you.
Wow.
And
it's like Operation Mockingbird.
Yeah. He goes, it would be about $500,000, maybe $1 million.
Whoa, wow. And this is early on.
Early on.
Damn.
And
that's real.
Did I ever tell you that?
Out.
No.
That's really selling.
First time I heard this story.
Yeah,
This is amazing. Hey, you're on the Strange Road, baby.
I don't think about it a whole lot, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but,
that's
and
so
I have so many stories in my head. This is why this is fun for me.
Yeah.
Because like I don't ever get to do this. And so like the stories just come back to me. But I don't remember how it ended. I know it ended open-ended because I was scared. I was very scared. And he's like, just think about it. I was like, okay, and this is the last time I ever talked to him, by the way. But I remember after that conversation, I called my dad who, before I started podcasting, I said to my dad, hey, I'm going to start this podcast and what yada, yada, yada. And he told me that he's like, Tony, if starting a podcast even can get you out of truck driving for 5 years, I would tell you to do it. Because he's a truck driver. And so it's like, he understands how like you're literally consumed by driving truck. And if you could have a life for 5 years,
Yeah.
Little did he know I don't have a life now, but it's a good life that I have. But, so I call him because like in my mind, I'm like, what just happened? And I didn't have a whole lot of people in my life at the time that I could even talk to about something like this. And he at least knew I was podcasting. And he's also the one who, I think it was episode 18, I had L.A. Marzulli on my show. And I'm at my parents' house one night. My dad's like, who you should have on your show? L.A. Marzulli. It's the same night that I realized my dad listened to Coast to Coast and all that stuff. So I was like, maybe Dad, I can at least talk to Dad about what just happened. And I called him and I told him what happened. And he's like, you don't want to do that. And I was like, I know I don't want to do that. He's like, well, I'm here to confirm you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like he's like, that will only lead to no good. And it was a real short conversation because there wasn't much to think about.
Yeah.
And I just don't know to this day if that guy was just lying, clowning, and wanting to catch this young podcaster in a position where he could, maybe go, on social media and just blast. Maybe he was recording the conversation or something. You know what I mean?
He could get something over you.
Right. Or that blackmail me, or was it authentic and real? I don't know. But that was the last conversation I had with the guy. And then he did start a campaign against me on social media for a while.
Wow.
And, so, but there's no teeth to it, because I never did anything. So
exactly.
And you're going to get that a lot with weird emails coming through from people.
Go ahead.
I just did early on when I started the podcast, I did a 4-part series on the Solomon Islands and about all of the crazy giants and everything else going on there.
Oh, yeah.
I find the Solomon Islands fascinating.
Me too.
Well, there was a book called Mysteries of the Solomon Islands by a guy called Marius Boreaon. And he's kind of a mysterious character. And
that's his pen name. That's not right.
From what we know, right?
Yeah.
But I've got a contact in Australia who mysteriously goes by C, and who a C that no longer talks to you anymore, which is super weird. And this C goes by Claire, but funnels me info. Like, it's wild. And I just get random info from like just the weirdest spots. Like, I dug this up in some UK archive. I thought you might like it. So yeah, maybe they're CIA. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I double check the info and I'm like, where did it come from? Is it legit info? I'm like, okay. So very invested in the show, but this C had actually tracked down the last name and was like, well, actually, his parents were living in Australia. Like, I tracked down the parents. That is his name or whatever, right? So I recently start getting an email from a Marius Boreaon, and the email address is Mysteries of the Solomon Islands, like all this stuff, and it's super professional.
Because they saw your episode.
Yeah, saw the episode.
Wow.
So
It was congratulating him on the job well done.
nailing it.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it was a lengthy
How old
email.
is this book?
The book was written, it came out in 2012.
Okay.
And it's been around for a long time. It's stupid expensive if you try to buy it now.
It's out of print.
Yeah. So if you try to get it now, I think when I looked at it on Amazon, I think it was going for like $4 or $5 grand, something like that. But I know that I did have several listeners that are out of state that were hitting me up and was like, hey, I found a place in the UK you can get it for $200, or you could get it over here for whatever. So people always send me stuff like that. So this dude writes this professional email, and like, it looks legit. I even hit you up. I hit Jack up. I was like, man, dude, like, it's kind of weird. I was like, but I don't trust anything. I don't care how professional it sounds. So at this point, I'm going to do like some testing. And that's kind of the part that people don't understand. They think we're just buying into what everybody sends us. Like, no,
sure.
we do, especially with stuff like that, you're going to vet because you want to know what you're getting into. And so I told the guy straight up, I was like, listen, I'm more than interested in talking to you. I was like, I'd like to get you on camera, and I like to do a little vetting process. I even use the word vetting, and then it just derailed. The email started getting crazier and crazier, and it just went weird. I think whoever was trying to trick me realized that it wasn't going to happen. So they were like, I'm just going to go bizarre now and just get super crazy with it.
Yeah.
And for almost a month, I was getting emails. I didn't even respond to them anymore. They were just super bizarre. Just kept coming through. Wow. Bizarre. But side note, I did an episode about cloning and talked about Donald Marshall. If you ever remember Donald Marshall, who was the one that came out of the cloning facility supposedly back in like 2010, whatever.
Right.
I had the real Donald Marshall reach out to me and actually tracked that down. It was the real dude, and he listened to my episode about him.
What?
Yeah.
You should have him on.
I tried. He didn't reach back to me though. That's how I know it's him, because that dude's straight up. Yeah. But anyway, he hit me up in the comments on the episode. He's like, great work. He was like, this is what I've been trying to tell people this whole time, because I gave him credit, because when he first came out, I did not buy into anything he had to say. Yeah. Because I was like, like every celebrity's a clone, like Britney Spears is a clone, and I get it. They were all coming out with weird videos that they were clones. Like, all that stuff's weird. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, they lose me on some of that stuff.
But as of recent, I was listening to people like Fringe and some of these other people who have had these experiences where there's this thing that happens where their spirit or soul is taken out of their bodies and moved into another body and put on missions. It clicked with me. I was like, wait a minute. Donald Marshall used to talk about this almost 12 years ago. REM cloning, REM cloning. He talked about this. I did a whole episode on REM cloning, and he popped in and was like, Yeah. And I tracked it and I was like, oh man, this is like the legit website, the legit, like everything. Even his channel
Well
was
done.
legit. Yeah.
Well done, my son.
I know. I was like,
No, here's the thing. I think that's the story of Osiris and Horus.
yeah.
I think that story was speaking about some kind of technology where Horus, the son of, was the son of Osiris, and Osiris just basically just ripped his consciousness, and it's, you know, the story is that he's his son, but he's the reincarnate of, he's the soul transplant of Osiris.
Well, Isis took the pieces of Osiris and say it the best way I can, but put the phallus back together
Yeah.
to then implement the seed to then create Horus. And the whole purpose was to take out the brother Set,
Yes.
which Horus's whole goal was to then take out Set. And they ended up in like an immortal battle after that is basically what happened.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, too, you were talking about that being like the parallel technology. There's another character who fashioned himself to be Horus, which was Aleister Crowley, and he mapped his whole life around that story because his father was essentially killed by the Plymouth Brethren, which were Christians at the time, and his dad had some sort of mouth cancer, and they basically told him, "No, we got this like electronic technology for the times," and they said, "We'll just pray to God and use this," and he died. So at like 8 years old, Crowley like hated Christians, so he fashioned himself to be Horus, and Set was Christianity, and that's how his whole life was built around this bringing the Aeon of Horus. Like he was trying to bring out this like Antichrist his whole career. So that's all mapped around this whole like Horus, Osiris, Isis story of Set, this immortal battle. But you have to put in the idea of technology in with that too,
sounds like
because it is Egyptian, and Egyptians had
Yeah.
crazy technology.
Yeah, like the sarcophagus in the king's chamber. Like, there's never a body. There's no cartouches. There's nothing on it. Like, is that for somebody to lay inside there to have some sort of like transfer of consciousness technology? You know, all these the pathways and the subterranean chambers, and
So I got one for
it's
you
some
on
kind
that.
of technology, man.
Just did an episode.
Spiritual technology.
Just did an episode on the Ark of the Covenant and the Great Pyramid. And the weird thing about that sarcophagus, when you measure it in pyramid inches, it is almost identical to the size of the Ark of the Covenant, which is
yeah.
even crazier. So guys like Stephen Quayle, Thomas Horn, and myself, I really like this theorizing, and I've done some digging into it because there's a camp of people who believe that the Great Pyramid, we're going to say Christians, and I'm not saying they're wrong because, again, this is all theorizing, right? But there's a camp that believes that the Great Pyramid was built by fallen angels. Like it was fallen angel tech. It's got this tech, whatever. I do believe that fallen angels bogarted the tech that was there. I also believe the other two pyramids were built by like Nephilim or fallen angels. But I believe that the Great Pyramid is far older than the other two pyramids. If you ever look at like what's inside the Great Pyramid, there's no hieroglyphs. There's nothing in there that's even Egyptian. The only thing Egyptian about it is what they added on the outside of it.
Right.
But the other pyramids have Egyptian culture all through it. So they were definitely built later. So the idea is, because it used to be that the entire Great Pyramid was built had limestone all on the outside of it. Here's what's insane. It said that you could have seen it from just about anywhere in the galaxy. It would have shone like the moon. So the idea, and this is coming from some other theologians and guys that I've read, and I really like it, that the actual Great Pyramid was built not by fallen angels, but by godly angels as a monument to Yahweh, a monument to God. And it was supposed to be there. What happened over time, especially, and I'm an old earthist, so I believe there was a flood before Adam. But if there was a flood before Adam, then during that time of these angelic civilizations, when that flood happened, and then it got bogarted by these fallen angels and these Nephilim, and then they built these other monuments next to it in conjunction with Orion's belt and all that, and they connected it to it. So at that point, then it became bogarted by the fallen angels and the technology that was added to it at that point.
Yeah.
But originally, it was built as a monument to God himself, which is even more mind-blowing if you think about it, because the precision that it was built with. Here's one for you, too. Do you know there are exactly 144,000 stones on the Great Pyramid? Do you know in Revelation they talk about the 144,000?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And every single ounce of that Great Pyramid ties right back into the Bible, even to Isaiah, where Isaiah talks about the monument that will be shown from Egypt as a monument to God. It's insane when you think about it that way, that actually that it could have been a godly monument that was originally built before it got taken over by all this other stuff.
I've always said that technology had to be high spiritually advanced people with extremely high technology.
Absolutely.
So we have high technology, but we're devoid of spirituality in current times. So we can build iPhones, we can build square buildings with right angles. We're devoid of spirit. Now, if you start evolving spiritually, like right now, we're in a place where if we go this way, we're living in the Terminator hell of Skynet. Or if we go this way, maybe we become a pyramid building civilization again and we have the spiritual technology combined with the physical technology. And we have to get out of those old ways of physics. And I'm no scientist, but when you look into these ancient cultures, they had to be at such a high level consciously and spiritually. They had to have been.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, I mean, I feel like we're actually in a transition right now culturally where we are becoming a society of spiritual people. I think disclosure is evidence of that. I think the disclosure they're feeding us is a supernatural disclosure. I've been saying that for months now. The very structure of the very ones that structure our society, who for generations have told us that atheism is the way to go. There is no God. It's all evolution. And
Carl Sagan believed in God. Carl Sagan believed in God. A lot of Michio Kaku, he doesn't talk about, just straight, factual materialist scientists. It's got a place, but I think all the early scientists were spiritual guys. They had a spiritual background, and maybe it wasn't, back then Christianity they had to hide in the dark because of what the Catholic Church was doing.
But yeah, I'm talking. I mean more like the architecture. The ones who are the architectures of. Is that the right word? Architectures. The ones who
Architects.
Thank you. Though it's getting late. The ones that are the architects of our culture and society.
Oh yeah.
There's people. There's the ones in the shadows that are orchestrating things.
Oh, I'm with you. Yeah.
Have been pushing us in an atheistic direction.
Absolutely.
But those are the same ones now who are revealing through disclosure this theological disclosure that is like, these are not just these beings that are coming from faraway planets to come here. They're already here. They're it's a spiritual thing. It's why you're seeing these spiritual cults pop up in the disclosure community.
Right.
And I find it very interesting that it's like they're circling us back around to a theistic perspective. And with what you just said, is it possible that their goal is to take us back into a spiritual existence along with the technology to maybe try to go to recreate the Tower of Babel kind of situation again?
Exactly. We'd become a breakaway civilization, become a part of the Galactic Federate. Here's the thing. Me and Bub always talk about this. You're going to have the AI come in. Number one, do you think ETs are getting in their spacecraft and they got to go fly back to the home planet and then clock out?
Report back, yeah.
Or clock in? Do you think they have jobs? No. They are focused on expanding their awareness of higher and higher evolution of consciousness. We're stuck right now in this money system where it's all run by oil. face it, like the whole economy
And Bitcoin, but yeah.
is by moving, and then Bitcoin is a solution to move us away from that system, or because the system just hasn't done a good enough job. Things like Bitcoin are almost created out of the freaking ether. It's really wild.
It is.
But if you have all the AI and you have all the robots that are doing everything, well, what do we do? What are we doing? We're going to what? Go to the factories. They're building everything. So then it comes to energy. So if you disclose these craft, you have to disclose the technology of this gravitic, free energy technology. And if that is released with the disclosure, guess what? Do we really need money anymore at that point? They're going to be making everything for us anyways. So there's no reason to have dollars to trade in to fill up your gas tank for you to go to work, to ship plastic around the world. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And to that point, and we're talking about the disclosure of spirituality, right?
Yeah.
I think we're honestly, and I mentioned this on my show, I think we're starting to move away from the ancient astronaut theory. We're moving more into a spiritual existence of interdimensional beings. They're talking about it now openly.
And that's the whole Bigfoot thing tied back around to what we were talking about earlier.
This was the weird part with the whole thing that came out with the second pyramid of Khafra when they found these weird spirals going all the way down using the SAR technology.
620 meters.
And I know some people want to argue that it's fake and whatever. I will say this. They did let it get out for a reason. Yeah. So here's what I want to say.
It was a public press conference.
Right.
But you had to buy a ticket. The problem is that the way they mishandled, someone leaked the images.
Right.
So people were scrambling around. I did a pretty deep dive just on like how it all unfolded.
Which I think was by design.
It could have been, but their team was not prepared to release this information. Like the conference was only in Italian.
Right.
I don't think it's still right now. It's you can subtitle it on YouTube. And then obviously their images, they only had a Facebook page where the images from the presentation of the AI generated artwork, the Confessionals Project Facebook group, but that is their only official outlet.
But it gets better
in the YouTube channel.
This is what keyed me off though. All the SAR pictures are great. All the 3D imaging that they showed us, awesome. I kind of already knew that anyway. You didn't even have to show me those pictures to let me know that there's a ton of stuff going underneath these pyramids, right? 100%. I think we all knew that anybody that suspected that they weren't actually built the way they said they were built, right? Yeah. But when I research, I love to research people, and I like to know who people are that are presenting information. Who's this? Let me track this person down. So the lady that presented the information, she's Italian. Her name was Nicole Cicola.
Yep.
So when I tracked who she is, the best way to say it in layman's terms, she is a psychic of text. Like she studies how text match up to other texts that supposedly are written by the same person over a period of time, but they use psychic manner to be able to do that. So I thought that was fascinating that she's a psychic for all intents and purposes, and she's the one delivering this information.
Right.
Then she wants to say, we think we found the halls of Amenti.
Oh boy, that's what got me.
That was the line where they said the halls of Amenti.
All the Thoth people, the Emerald tablets, they're all freaking out.
Why would you say that though and release that? And how would you know that that's what that is under there if you're just looking at what the SAR technology is showing you?
Yeah.
You got to have some other information that you're not telling us, because now you're going down a whole other rabbit hole of these mysterious emerald tablets that were supposedly written by Thoth that were actually discovered by, and I forgot the guy's name now.
Well, Armando May, who was like the third guy, Philip Biondi, and then the other guy are the SAR and the Doppler specialist.
Right.
The other dude, he's been on Gaia. He's been featured as a blogger on Ancient Origins blog website, which is mainstream. Those are, pseudoscience websites or whatever it is. So he's been on those ancient civil, like Billy Carson.
Right.
Like, he's kind of like a Billy Carson guy.
I love Billy Carson.
I do too. He's gotten a lot of heat lately, but shout out to Billy. I'd love to have him on my show.
Well, I said it sarcastically, but go ahead.
Hey, why don't you get him and Wes up on here at the same time and have a great time?
And here's the deal with Billy. He was out of his element. Unfortunately,
when it came
to the biblical stuff, I don't think he understood quite as. Now, there's other things, say what you want about Billy. He's an interesting cat. I don't buy all of his books, but he does have some interesting information.
Yeah,
I think he was
out
of his element. Yeah, no, he's extremely intelligent. His kind of personality is. His online presence is definitely
one of my air conditioners is out. One of my 5 air conditioners is out. He's like, I was taking a nap in my theater. And it's like,
I know. And he does the social media hits in front of his Ferrari. I'm like, why do you gotta do that?
So,
man.
To this Halls of Amenti.
Yeah.
So if you track that down, obviously the Emerald Tablets and
Hermes Trismegistus.
Well,
material.
and that's so the Hermes Trismegistus Emerald Tablet is different than the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, because they were supposedly discovered in like the 1930s or 40s.
Well, M. Doriel probably made it all up.
Well, and also that's not even his real name.
No,
that's the best part.
Yeah.
But I will say this about Doriel. So he has some very interesting connections when it comes to these underground beings that supposedly met with him, these Atlanteans, but they look an awful lot like what Admiral Byrd ran into when he went into Inner Earth. And also a lot of these theosophists over the past 100 years also ran into
the White Brotherhood.
The Secret Chiefs. You can go down to the Mahatmas, all that stuff. So it made me think that he's met some sort of beings, right?
Yeah.
He met something. We can say he made it up all day, and maybe he was gifted these Emerald Tablets of Thoth and he thought they were real, and maybe he transcribed them from some being. We don't know exactly, because he supposedly got these in the Great Pyramid. That was the whole deal.
You're right.
So it gets better. So when you track down the Halls of Amenti, this goes really deep into Gnosticism, and like this is supposedly like the barrier, right? So when you die, your soul goes to the Halls of Amenti and it meets with the demiurge, which some people who are not Christian think that that's Yahweh, and Yahweh's this evil God of the Old Testament, and he battles with the real God who lives in the Pleroma, which is like the place we're trying to get to. And then you got Jesus, who's really the son of Monad, which is the real God. It's a whole convoluted thing when you get into Gnosticism. And I've been going deep with Gnosticism because there is a huge contingent of even Christians who believe Yahweh's evil, which is so mind-blowing because Jesus literally quotes Yahweh consistently all through the New Testament. I did a whole episode on the evil Yahweh just to get everybody's cheeks tight. So I did, because I got tired of hearing the fact that Jesus was different. And when he literally claims that he's Yahweh, and he quotes the verses from the Old Testament into saying that he is him. So anyway.
Well, people think that because of all of the early prophets and, the trying to get, whether it's sacrificing their own son and those, it's, people get that as like, damn, that was a evil God. That God from the Old Testament was, murdering people.
The best part is, though, is
all
Jesus,
about war.
Jesus quotes.
He wasn't murdering people, though.
Jesus quotes verses that talk about those specific instances and calls that person his father, and literally calls himself him. So God is him. But you have to really understand the Bible and all of the connections to do that, because it's very easy, and I say Gnostics do this all the time, it's very easy as a Gnostic to cherry pick verses out of context and just start throwing stuff out there and not understanding the full scope of it and being able to connect the New and the Old Testament like it should be. So getting to the Halls of Amenti, I got sidetracked there. So we've got the demiurge, who is Yahweh, who is standing there. So your soul soul goes there. And if you have ascended enough here on this earth, you will become greater than Yahweh, and you will pass into this pleroma where you'll meet Sophia and the monad, and you're going to move into this next realm.
That's
and
the
essentially
White Brotherhood, where it's Mayari and all of these ascended masters,
right?
All of that,
and this all comes from
list.
Helena Blavatsky, and it all comes from Alice Bailey, and all of the tenets of theosophy, which also spilled out into Aleister Crowley and Thelema, and we can get into the Golden Dawn. All of these different sects of occultism breaks into this whole part. So for you to get past Yahweh, you have to ascend. Now, if you're not powerful enough, if you've not done enough on this earth to shed your ego, right? It's all about burying the ego, killing the ego enough to then become greater than Yahweh, to pass past him, to move into that great white brotherhood or whatever. There's 100 different names for it. So if you don't, you just reincarnate back into this bucket of souls until you find a new body, get thrown back into that, and you do it all over again until you finally get past it. And that's Gnosticism in a nutshell. And that's literally tied into the halls of Amenti, which Nicole Cicola is saying they found this place where you're literally going to meet the demiurge and pass through. So why are they saying that, though, is the question. Why would you go to that? Why are you saying that we think we found the halls of Amenti? What makes you think that, though? I need to understand that part out of those SAR images that you went there with it. Either you know something that you're not telling us, or you are trying to drive the narrative a certain way to get people prepped enough.
Discredit people, discredit the researchers. Like, that's what it felt like to me. When she mentioned Halls of Amenti, I'm like, a little bit early for that. Like, there has to be a reason why they led with that, or she did, Nicole did. And I did look into her background as well, and some of them, but I was shocked when they said we may have found the halls. I'm like, wow, that is a bit early to be using that specific. And a lot of people did not understand the halls of Amenti part. At all. Many people didn't get that part of it. But it's connected to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Native American Pathway of the Souls, which is basically like Serpent Mound was a machine to navigate that spiritual process, essentially.
It's, by the way, a lot of theosophists did a lot of work out there too.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, Ohio is ground zero for the Mormons and a lot of sects and cults over the years.
Careful.
It's a strange vibe here.
It's a strange road.
When we get off this, I'll tell you about what happened to us in Kirtland that won't even make the film. That is so bizarre and so insane that it couldn't even make the film because of legal reasons.
Wow. And you can't talk about it.
Not on air. And I can't even put it in the film.
Wow.
It's a piece of the film that'll never make it there.
Okay, we're going to end this now.
Well, yeah. I mean, my bladder's getting full.
Luckily, I gave you guys those pads too.
And Justin England's a part of this too, which makes it even better.
Of course. He's what a way to end the show. You guys are incredible. Thank you so much for coming down in studio. This has been a freaking absolute blast. Shout out to Alex there in Master Control. We appreciate the hell of it.
This is his first day on the job, right?
Yeah.
What a great guy.
We just met.
What a great guy.
Alex has hit me up. He's getting into live event production, and somehow somebody up in Cleveland knew the Strange crew, and said you should hit them guys up if you're interested in live streaming, and they got a whole thing going on. So we've been trying to link up, and here we are. So
how long have we been cooking? Because for his first day on the job, he's probably like, "Geez, it's gonna be like this every time."
Alex, I'm gonna get you a hotel room if you need it, brother. So it's a bit of a drive back up to Cleveland, but man, again, thank you guys so much. This has been awesome. Let us know where we can find you, where we can reach out.
You can find me at Linktree/Joel Thomas Media. That'll literally get you to all the music I do. That'll get you all the films I do. That'll get you to the podcast, Free the Rabbits, and Merkel.media as well. So you can catch me there too, because I'm underneath Merkel Media. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yep. And for me, it would be the confessionalspodcast.com is where the show is hosted. We're on all platforms on YouTube. And if they want to see some of the documentaries we were talking about, merkelfilms.com is where you can do on-demand streaming. And we're going to be opening up that platform to other independent creators because now that I'm not a producer, I'm dabbling with distribution. And so we'll be expanding that to other creators as well. And if you want a It Gets Weird t-shirt like I'm wearing right now, it's at merkmerch.com, merkmerch.com. And yeah, I mean, I people ask me, you know, like, what do you do? I'm like, what don't I do? You know, or what's your podcast about? I'm like, I don't know. Like it's about everything. Like if it's crazy, we talk about it. So it's hard for me to tell everybody about me other than I would just say, Google me. So that's about it.
They're out there, ladies and gentlemen. They are out there. And you can find us at The Strange Road, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all over the place. We got the Facebook group. We got the Discord. We appreciate you guys sharing, liking, subscribing. Got to hit that notification bell. We're out of here. Love, peace, and chicken grease.
Peace.
We're out.
It was a lot of fun.
You can hit that wide, that black and white.